Good afternoon and welcome to the afternoon session of the Landmarks Preservation Commission's public hearing and public meeting today, February 27th, 2024. We are resuming this afternoon with public hearing item number 9, and I will turn it over to our Director of Preservation, Corey Harala, to take us through the afternoon agenda items.
Thanks, Sarah. And just to note, we did do public hearing item 8, which would have been after lunch. We ended up being able to do that before lunch. So that's why we're starting with number 9 right now. LPC 24-06405, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 515, Lot 14, 477 West Broadway in the Soho Cast Iron Historic District. This is currently a vacant lot, and the application is to construct an outdoor dining structure.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Pat Stackelberg, Space Partners, joined by Eugene Graham, our client, Adrian Figueroa, as our architects. The project site that we're working with and presenting today is 477 West Broadway. It's see it here on the northwest corner of the original Soho Cast Iron Historic District. It's this open lot right on the corner of West Broadway. Sorry, can you get closer to Mike? Okay. It's located in the northwest corner of the original Cast Iron Historic District, and is on the corner of West Broadway and West Houston Street. You can see a photograph of this lot here. It's actually not quite at the corner, and I'll show you the origin of this site because it's a somewhat of an unusual corner condition. But it's one of these leftover spaces that was a result of the widening of Houston Street, the improvements that came along with the creation of that wide street. And the proposal is for a one-story open structure, and it is directly adjacent to a commission-approved two-story structure that was approved in the 1980s. And what you'll see in our presentation is that one-story structures, both in terms of pre-designation and even post-designation, are actually somewhat typical of the historic district. They're spread along, particularly along this south side of Houston Street with these infill structures, but you see them also elsewhere throughout the district. What's being proposed is this simple frame structure that we think relates to the proportion of the base of these buildings and holds this corner in a way that has not been rooted for decades. Before I begin a discussion about the details of the proposal, Eugene Rem, the operator, would like to just say a few words about the goals of the project.
Good afternoon, Eugene Rem. I've been an owner and operator in the city for the last 20 years. The challenge with the current location is the unpredictability in the weather between rain, wind, and a bunch of other things. We are unable to seat this on a regular basis. The opportunity here is to create a bit more predictability so that we can service guests and make sure that we have the ability to execute and run a proper business where people know who can sit out there on a day in and day out basis. Thank you very much.
So just turning to the sort of the origins of this lot. So as you can see, this is a Sanborn map here, overall view, and this is the sort of corner site on the corner of West Broadway and Houston Street. And this detail here of that corner. And lot 14 is 477 West Broadway. It's 18 feet wide and 50 feet deep. There's a 1870s tenement building directly to the south of 475. Which extends back 100 feet. But there's also, hopefully you can see this sort of L-shaped space directly to the north of lot 14. That's this sort of 4-foot wide space that's just to the north of our project site. So it's this leftover space that's combining a piece of another lot and a smaller lot, lot 14, that comprises this corner condition. And then this long, 150-foot long building, that's that two-story commission-approved tile-clad building from the 1980s. So it's an unusual corner condition filled with a commission-approved building and the vacant space. The proposal is seen here on the right. It's a one-story open structure, an existing condition view here on the left. And you can see this is positioned alongside the side elevation of 475 West Broadway, which has a painted wall sign, and then directly adjacent to that 1980s building. What you'll see in the details as we go through this is the proposal is for this to largely be an open structure, but it also has a louvered system on the roof that allows it to open to allow daylight into the roof. And it also has almost like similar to almost like a garage door. There are a series of double hung glass panels that allow this to go up and down, so that the goal is on most of the time to just have this open, but to allow a little bit of sun protection and perhaps rain protection when needed, but to allow for enclosed space as needed when the weather requires. Looking at the existing conditions across the top are some wider views across Houston Street here, and then looking west toward West Broadway, and then some detailed views here at the corner, and then within that existing fence that wraps the space. So just to note that this wedge here, this 5-foot wedge, this is that leftover L-shaped lot. So that's actually not sidewalk, that's private property. This concrete knee wall is actually on the adjacent property. This fence that wraps the open lot at 477 is actually on the lot of 477. And then you can see here in the lower right, there are doors that open through the side elevation of the adjacent space out to this open lot. And those were commission approved along with the awnings and the lighting in the 1990s. So to Eugene's point, there's connectivity between these two spaces, between the existing restaurant and this open space. But obviously when it rains, they can't take reservations. If it rains, people can't just move inside because the space is already full. So the goal here is to arrive at a little bit more predictability for this space, but to do it obviously in an appropriate way to the district. Some historic maps again just to show the of this end of the block. On the left is a map from 1916 showing Houston Street as it was originally laid out, 60 feet I believe in width, with loft buildings fronted onto Houston Street. For the widening of the street and the cutting of the subway, the street was widened all the way back to this edge, and you can see some of these structures remained in the 1930s, and then a current map here in the 1920s. So again, this lot is where the building at 475 is, where the 5-story tenement building is. The lot here at 477, where we're proposing the enclosure, and then that little wedge that's just that leftover 5-foot edge alongside the south side of Houston Street. So looking at how these leftover spaces evolved sort of soon after the cutting of the street, this is a photograph from the 1930s, really very soon after the subway was completed and the street opened. And you can see already there are this sort of introduction of one-story structures. This is a used car lot here on the south side of Houston between this is Lafayette and Crosby Street. So you can see that these spaces already were becoming filled in by really a range of different kinds of structures. These are photographs, similar result from a street widening on 7th Avenue with one-story newsstands and other types of structures that sort of appeared. The corner of Houston and Broadway, a few blocks to the east of our project site, has a sort of an interesting history, but also these sort of almost ephemeral-like structures that sort of popped up. So there was a newsstand in the 1940s on that corner, but there was a fruit and vegetable stand there for decades, known as the Honest Boy, which some of you may remember. I remember it there before the building that's there took its place, but sort of simple open structures that served a defined need. This was there, as I said, for decades. Turning to other properties on Houston Street. So the designation report photos don't really include photographs along Houston Street, but they're picked up in some of these other photographs. So this is on the north end of Worcester. This is the corner of Houston and Worcester Street, Crosby and Worcester Street. So typically along Houston Street, there are the infill of these sort of large openings, often garages, simple structures on the ends of these lots that just got filled in sort of haphazardly over time. And this collection of images of other 1- and 2-story structures throughout the district, some that persist today, others that have been replaced across the top garage structures. This one on the corner of Houston between Crosby and Lafayette, and other garage structures. And particularly along Houston Street, you see these sort of simple frame structures with these large apertures, largely to serve automobiles. And the photos across the bottom show this range of other types. So again, sort of a garage type structure on West Broadway. This bank branch, which was on the corner of Broome and Broadway. And then this sort of, glass and metal luncheonette on Kenmare Street. So a wide range of one-story structures existed in the district historically. And in fact, actually, the commission has approved those 1- and 2-story buildings post-designation, post-1972 as well. So in the 1990s and the early aughts as well. So this is just a collection of a handful of buildings that the commissioners have approved as part of the sort of smaller scale buildings in the district. And what's interesting is sort of reading the findings of those permits. What the findings note is that the sort of proportion at the ground floor often relates to the proportions at the base of the historic buildings adjacent. But they also acknowledge sort of the wide range of appropriate materials from this 1980s approval for a polychrome tile cladding to stucco here on Green Street, limestone and granite on Prince Street, and brick on West Broadway. So there's a wide range of metal and masonry that are approved. And there's also a note about sort of, particularly for these corner sites, the way that they hold the corner or reinforce the street wall, even at 1 story. And that was something that persists through the approvals for these buildings. So turning to our proposal, this is an existing building elevation, sort of side elevation, and a proposed elevation. So you can see that the painted wall sign called out here and here. You can see here the side elevation, the existing awning and lighting, and then just the frame structure at about 10, 11 feet off the sidewalk with this regular sort of bay configuration. A little detail elevation showing similar feature. Again, these panels will have sort of a double hung glass system that could actually create an enclosure when the weather requires, but the idea is to have those in the down position as often as possible. But I think you'll see too, the sort of bay rhythm here is sort of consistent with the spacing of other storefronts around the district. And then on the West Broadway side, existing on the left and proposed on the right, we do need to have doors. This is a fence that has a gate. The gate's shown in the closed position right now, but you'll see in the renderings how that looks in the open position, but it almost reads almost like a typical storefront for a 1-story structure. Some detail elevation. So this indicates the operability of these glass panels in the closed position or the open position. This bottom panel will be just an opaque panel, and the 2 glass panels above will just nest behind it. So again, the idea is to have this as open as possible, but again, to allow it to be sort of closed up for weather protection as needed. And then the elevation on West Broadway showing the same operability on the flanking bays and the paired doors on West Broadway. An existing plan, according to the survey, and this is the property line shown here, that knee wall is outboard of the property line, but this is the existing open lot here at 477, and then the restaurant space at 475. Showing a proposed plan of the way that the frame structure sits within that space, and then just this furniture plan just to show perhaps how the layout would work, allowing for a number of tables and chairs for patrons to use. Looking at some of the detailing, so this is a section cut through the structure. You can see the sort of double hung arrangement of the glass panels, this fixed panel below where the panels would nest behind, and then the system across the ceiling of this enclosure, the roof of the enclosure, allows for sort of an open grid form to let daylight in, but with some shadows. It can be closed to keep the water out and rain out, and then it can also be pulled back to be completely open. So there's quite a bit of flexibility, but the idea is to have it be this light, almost sort of impermanent light structure. Some details here, again, some details sort of showing how the louvering system works across the roof of this structure. The color, this Hancock gray, we selected from the Benjamin Moore Historic Color Palette. We think this is sort of consistent with other colors that one might see in buildings of the late 19th century. Obviously, it's a contemporary structure, but we thought it made sense to come up with something that sort of felt like it was within the palette of the district. And then some details across the base. This is at the corner. You can see this sort of integral gutter system to collect rain off the roof when the roof is shut. This element here is basically the motor that will operate the glass panels because they're quite large. They're not really something that one can just lift up and down. And then at the building line where the roof structure will attach to the adjacent property, just a simple shelf angle anchored into the mortar joints to sort of carry the load of the top element of the frame. And then a plan section of the post. So each of the posts is about 5 by 6 inches. So it's fairly slender in dimension. And then just a series of renderings on the left, the existing condition on the right, as it would look when the glazing panels were closed. So you can just catch the mullion that would break at the top and the bottom sash. And then some detailed renderings in the open position, sort of indicating the daylighting coming through, and then in the closed position in inclement weather. And then finally, just an overall view of the structure in the context. And we think, in terms of context, I think in thinking about appropriateness, I think the context of this proposal, I think, is significant. It's sort of set within this 1980s commission approval for a 2-story polychrome tile building. It's against the side elevation with this wall sign. It's not really in the core of the district. And this side of Houston Street in particular had been constructed and evolved over time with many of these kind of 1- and 2-story structures. And then in terms of the design, I think the Bay Rhythm picks up the rhythm of other garage-like structures and perhaps even storefronts seen throughout the district. And then in terms of its impact, I think it's going to have a really no physical or visual impact on the historic building to the south. And I think sort of more broadly, it will hold the street, it'll establish the corner, and provides a nice terminus for the end of this important block.
Great, thank you. Do we have any questions? Yes, Vice Chair Bland.
How is it that you can rely on drilling into the neighborhood there to support part of it?
I think that's there is the restaurant is in that space as well, so there's a relationship already.
Okay.
Between landlord and tenant, so also the property owner. I'll just repeat that. Sorry, the 2 lots are
Owned by the same person.
All right, Commissioner Jefferson, followed by,
Page 23. This is a pavilion. Why not just complete the concrete edge? Finish it.
Are you suggesting turn the corner onto
Yeah, you see
House?
the concrete edge, the rough concrete that existed before.
the knee wall.
Why not just finish it?
Oh, so that's actually on the adjacent property. That's on that very narrow corner lot that is not owned by the owner of 477 or 475. I can go back to the floor plan, the site plan, but there's a leftover piece of another lot.
Who owns that lot, Cass? That little narrow strip? The one to the left? The tile building?
Yes, the tile building.
You're asking why they don't bring it out.
It's a different building.
That's why I assume maybe they didn't have the rights, I wondered.
Part of that.
And the fence that's there is sitting on the concrete wall?
Yes, it's sitting on a concrete wall.
Okay, I mean, I think it's very minimal addition here on the corner. My reaction is odd that you're putting it behind this existing, not so attractive low wall fence. But you're telling me that's not your property and you can't touch it. Okay. Because you're doing this open thing, then you have this
The
fence.
fence on West Broadway is on our property, the one that's called
Houston.
Houston is not.
And the plantings are being perpetuated by you guys or by someone else?
They're artificial plantings.
They're not real. There's no.
Plastic.
The plastic.
They're plastic. Unclear. Do they care about this at all? Are they saying, are they fighting you on this tooth and nail or negotiating? What's the deal?
The owner of the adjacent lot?
Yeah.
I don't think they commented that.
We had our community board here.
Great.
But it's all owned by the same.
So let me go back to the plan, because there's sort of multiple lots in this small little spot. So this L-shaped piece where the concrete wall is and the fence is owned by the same entity that owns this piece. Lot 14 is owned by the same entity that owns 13. So the current restaurant is in 13 and uses 14. There's a different owner that wraps our proposed site. That is also the owner of that.
But if they let you drill into their wall and support part of it, why can't they let you take that ugly fence down?
This is the.
You would think so, yeah. You would think so,
Here, so where there's shared ownership,
Sorry.
not this one.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I should say full disclosure. 44 years ago, maybe, I designed that little green. I think what you're doing is great. So I did not recuse.
I wanted to make sure they weren't drilling into your building.
You're saying that cannot be finished to look like a complete.
I mean, we could ask the other building owner to do something to their property, but,
Okay.
you know, yeah.
All right, Commissioner
Go
Chu,
ahead.
and I think Commissioner Chapin, you had a question? But let
My
Commissioner Chu
My
finish and then-
question was following, I mean, was in the exact same
Yeah.
direction as
Okay.
Commissioner Jefferson planned, which is, why can't you sort of square that off? It looks like you're not maximizing, and I assume there was a reason, so now we know.
Okay, Commissioner Chu.
If you had it your way, would that just be gone? That's my question. Because you've got these operable garage door windows, they all face Houston. It's all about Houston and the sidewalk experience and the visibility, right? Would you have that fence and that low concrete wall, or would you just eliminate it? I mean, is that something that you would consider asking the neighbor who doesn't seem to be that difficult?
Kind of crappy.
But we will, yeah. I mean, I will point out, Houston Street is a pretty busy street.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
some separation, there's an advantage to some separation. So,
Agreed, but
I
you
think
could
it's-
probably design something nicer than what's there right now that
Well,
works.
by removing,
Yeah,
design through elimination, right.
or your garage system could have something at the lower portion. You have a fixed panel down there, but it could be done in a way that feels a little more designed and intentional as a barrier down there as opposed to the fence.
And I think there are other solutions. Right now, they only have control over
I
this lot.
understood.
So we have to look at it on this lot only, but should they get somewhere with the owner, they can come back to us with either an amendment to redo the wall or to do a different
Right.
kind of fence or something more open that provides some protection as well. Okay.
I have a
Yes.
question.
Commissioner Lutfi.
How many seasons is this going to be operating? Like, is there going to be heating and HVAC in this?
So so the idea is to have this, if possible, 4 seasons. And we have talked specifically about conditioning, like
Mhm.
conditioning the air. And there isn't going to be, we talked about sort of bringing in freestanding heaters and things like that. There are ceiling fans. So the idea is that this isn't going to all of a sudden get duct work and all kinds of things. The goal is to have this just a simple frame structure. We're showing a fan on each of the cross members, but we don't anticipate a heavy HVAC component that's not flexible.
So in the winter, for example, if I was in there eating my tacos or whatever, and it was 20 degrees out, how cold would it be? Yeah, okay, so it's really going to go maybe three seasons. And it's almost like, yeah. Right, got it. Okay, that's what I was wondering. Thanks.
Okay. Other questions? Let me just see. All right, and just check confirming. Okay, good. So why don't we move to public testimony? And maybe we'll have more questions after that. Is there anyone in the room who would like to speak on this item? Noting that there isn't, I will turn it over to Gregory to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We have one hand raised in the attendees list. That one hand raised is Pete Davies. Pete Davies, I am promoting you to panelist right now. please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Great. Yes, thank you. My name is Pete Davies. I'm a 45-year resident of Soho. I really urge the commissioners to reject this design. This is more like the buildings that we always hear are non-contributing, but even worse. The materials have nothing to do with what we find in Soho. There's very little attention been given to the floor and how they're going to treat that, how they will deal with whatever excavating needs to be done to secure this, what they call a structure rather than a building. I just think this is a far cry from what Soho should be given at this very prominent entry into the district. So I ask you to not allow this to be done. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I am looking through the attendees list now, and I do not see any further hands raised. So I will note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 2 recommends denial of the application as being a modern building without historic reference, rather than a light structure that preserves the spirit of the outdoor dining and has a historic reference to the neighborhood. And with that, I'll bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
All right. Would you like to respond to the comments we've heard?
Yeah. First piece of testimony, this is a painted metal structure. I think in Soho, in the cast iron historic district, perhaps, I don't know, nothing is more appropriate than a painted metal structure. But, you know, there was a discussion at the community board also about the potential of proposing what could be considered a non-contributing building. A one-story building is not typical for the district, but as I pointed out, historically, these buildings existed throughout the district. In fact, the commissioners have even found that a one or two-story structure can be found significant. And I think in terms of the community board's comments, it is contemporary in its expression. We didn't think adding a cornice around the top of it made any sense. It needed to be sort of a simple structure. And to that end, I think it actually is appropriate. And I think in holding the corner, it really is an addition, an enhancement to this end of the block.
Any other questions? Not seeing any questions, I think we'll move to our discussion. Commissioner Ginsburg, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. Commissioner Goldblum, would you second that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the hearing is closed and we'll begin our discussion. This is an outdoor restaurant space that has been in place for a very long time, and the proposal is to create an enclosure for weather protection that would be in painted metal. And as the applicant pointed out, of course, historically, these one-story structures, particularly on Houston, which was a widened street, which left these sort of rough edges where there aren't really formal corners. But even throughout the district, and the commission, again, as the applicant pointed out, has approved a variety of one-story and mezzanine structures throughout the district in very sort of contemporary styles and materials. So with that context, we'll begin our discussion. Commissioner Chu, would you like to start this one?
Sure. I'm okay with this proposal. I think it's a very minimal addition. I don't know how long this will be here. It seems like it's done for the purpose of this tenant currently. My only issues is the fence, and I know that's not under the property of this client or this applicant here, but I do urge them to look at whether the neighboring owner would be willing to just cut the fence off, leave the concrete bottom. And the applicant talked a lot about anchoring the corner, holding the corner. I think it's odd that you hold the corner and block it with this thing. I think it's much more a visible corner that we're looking for here.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Lutfi?
I think this is a good project. It anchors the corner. It's not so obtrusive. it, it kind of adds to the landscape in a very understated way. Seems like it could go away at some point. I am having a problem with this green, fake greenery. I think it detracts, and in fact, if it could go away, it would be so wonderful to do something by an artist or, that could complement what's there, but add to it in a way, because since the box is so simple, and, Soho, I'm going to say, really has a history of the arts, and it might not be what it is right now. I don't know. I mean, that's my only problem with it.
And again, that's something we can,
Yeah.
they talk to the owner of the neighboring property about. Vice Chair Bland?
I agree that I think the minimalist approach here is absolutely the right approach. Just also, as others have said, encourage the discussion with your neighbor and see if you can work out a better arrangement with that fence.
Okay. Commissioner Ginsburg?
I agree, and the only thing I'd add is that they work out something with the neighbor that can be resolved at staff level and doesn't have to come back to us.
Commissioner Goldblum? Commissioner Chapin?
Yeah, I agree. I think that, a modern building here is appropriate in this, for the context of what's happening, and, it's a metal painted structure. And I also agree that the structure looks a lot better than the screening. And it should come up with something better for screening, but they could use any kind of vegetation. I mean, there's some terrific examples around the city of outdoor things that are really quite attractive. So I think they could do a lot better with that.
Commissioner Jefferson?
Yeah, when I saw the pavilion last night, I thought, gee, it's very nice. And then I said, why the color? Why that color of the pavilion? And I was looking at the context, the urban context, and saying, and then I saw this concrete wall. And I said, if they can't change the wall, can they modify the color? So then it becomes, but the corner is so important. They emphasize the corner. And if they emphasize the corner and made the color of the building another color, then I wouldn't mind the concrete wall. But that's for the architect to decide. I can approve this.
All right. Commissioner Master?
Yeah, I agree with the other commissioners. I think this is appropriate.
Okay, so I think we have a consensus to approve this. We do encourage you to talk to the owner of the neighboring property to see what can be done about the concrete wall, fence, and fake greenery. But in the meantime, your proposal on your lot is, I think, found to be appropriate by the group here today. So Commissioner Chu, would you make that motion?
Sure. In the case of LPC 2406-405, 477 West Broadway, Soho Cast Iron Historic District, a vacant lot application is to construct an outdoor dining structure. I note that the site is a vacant lot located on the northeast corner of Soho Cast Iron Historic District and is the result of the introduction of widening of streets in the late 19th and early 20th century to facilitate vehicular movement to the new East River bridges. I recommend approval, finding that the proposed work will not eliminate or damage any significant architectural features, that there is a history of one-story taxpayers being built on irregular lots facing Houston Street in the Soho Cast Iron Historic District, as well as new larger commission-approved buildings on these lots. And the massing and placement of the proposed dining structure fits comfortably within this context. The proposed design for the one-story outdoor dining structure featuring retractable glazed panel walls, a louvered roof, and dark brown metal framing will maintain a sense of transparency and openness on this vacant lot and will be a seasonally open structure. That the one-story outdoor dining structure will be well scaled to the adjacent tenement building and will differentiate itself as a secondary accretion and that the work will not detract from the special architectural and historic character of the Soho Cast Iron Historic District.
Thank you. And Commissioner Lutfi, would you second that motion?
Second.
All right, Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Bland, Commissioner Chapin,
Aye.
Commissioner Chu,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum, Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi, Commissioner Master.
Aye.
With 9 in favor, none opposed, the motion passes.
Next item is public hearing item number 10, LPC 24-04711. An application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 613, Lot 20, 230 West 11th Street in the Greenwich Village Historic District. This is an Italianate-style row house built in 1860. The application is to construct rooftop and rear yard additions, alter the rear facade, and excavate the cellar and rear yard.
My name is John Patino. I'm the architect for the proposed renovations. This is the site, 230 West 11th, between Waverly Place and West 4th Street. Here we have some historic maps showing the historical existence of additions in the rear yards. Map showing the historical existence of additions in the rear yards. We see it in the 1895 Sanborn map and the subsequent Bromley maps. There currently are additions on our property as well as the two neighbors to the east, two additions. This is existing plot plans with building heights. You can see the subject property and the one adjacent to the east are 3 stories in the basement, followed by 4 stories in the basement and 3 stories. And the 2 to the east have 2-story additions. Some existing site photographs. This is the front facade with the 1940s tax photo on the right. This current application does not include any renovation to the front facade. That will be coming in a subsequent application to replicate the design features of the 1940s photo. Here are 2 renderings. The left is existing and the right is the proposed. Our work is focused on the top roof and rear facade and rear yard. So we can see we have a new black metal guardrail, a new chimney replacing an existing one, new mechanical bulkhead and stair bulkhead. The existing site photos. The center one is pretty much straight on. This was a 1990s renovation to an earlier addition. The photo on the left looking west towards the church, and the photo on the right looking east towards the adjacent neighbors, where you can see their 2-story additions. In the center photo, you can see that the parapet was raised fairly high on this previous addition to form a guardrail for a balcony. We're lowering that down to finished floor level, so the mass would seem much less obtrusive, and then the addition would be going full width of the lot. So that whole masonry structure would be replaced, and the top 2 stories of masonry and the original facade would also be replaced. Here are renderings of the existing and proposed with some comparisons. So you can see on the lower floor, the 2-story addition is being demolished and rebuilt. On the ground floor, in the rear yard, we're seeing 3 French doors. Above that, 3 more French doors with Juliet balcony. Above that is a roof terrace. And we're also indicating that the masonry openings will be slightly enlarged. The head heights would remain the same, but the sills would be removed and the masonry down to the finished floor on the left-hand, the western 2 windows. That facade is getting rebuilt, but we're saying we're maintaining the head height and the detailing. On the third floor, the sill height is being retained. We are raising the parapet height a little bit, so we're raising the window height a little bit. And we are changing materials at the cornice. We're replicating the existing cornice detail out of brick. And as the parapet is raising, you can see on the far right-hand, upper right-hand corner is a detail showing how we're handling the parapet extension. It's changing materials to zinc-coated copper for the top, like 30 inches or so, 36 inches, to match the same material that's cladding the stair bulkhead and mechanical bulkhead. And we're also showing the chimney there. There is an adjacent wood pergola, so we are going up in height to clear, provide the required 3-foot clearance above that. Here we have existing elevation drawings on the left of the rear facades, and on the right is our proposed with the 2 adjacent east neighbors. There are some site photographs. If you can, please ignore the mock-ups in these. They were existing when the previous owner had some proposed renovations, and this is what was left over of their mock-up. We have a view looking south on the top, and then a view looking towards the west and northwest. More existing photographs looking to the north, and then looking to the northeast and to the east. The roof plan on the top gives a good indication of the scope of work that has the public effect. We're showing the stair bulkhead, the elliptical shape, mechanical bulkhead, new roof pavers. Also see the location of the 2 chimneys that replaced previous chimneys, and a skylight to the 3rd floor. You're looking down in the rear yard at the 1st floor roof terrace with the Juliet balcony. These are elevations of the roof structures. We're looking on the top one, we're looking west, seeing an elliptical stair bulkhead and skylight in the back. Closer in distance is the the mechanical bulkhead, mechanical enclosure, and guardrails. The middle rendering is a view from the west, so essentially taken from the neighbor's property, looking at the mechanical bulkhead, mechanical enclosure, and stair bulkhead and chimneys. Bottom 2 elevations on the left, this is just a blow up of the front elevation, and the back is a blow up of the rear elevation. Here we have existing and proposed sections. You can see at the existing section on the left, the roof sloped rather steeply from West 11th Street to the rear yard. So the design intent was to flatten that roof out, which gave us a lot of benefits. One was we were able to create an attic space to house mechanical ductwork. We're also able to use the roof as a stormwater retention system. This did require raising the parapet a little bit, which is why that was indicated in on the elevations. So blow up of the proposed section. You can see the street views. Nothing is visible straight on, sort of very close to the house. As you go further down east or west on 11th Street, there are portions that become visible. And also from Waverly Place, you can see the chimneys. There's a view over a 1-story structure now at Waverly Place. The top drawing indicates the extent of excavation and underpinning. So the turquoise area is existing basement that's being lowered approximately 3 feet. And the green area is the subcellar addition excavation. The dark red areas show the underpinning. So there's underpinning along the west wall, the north, and then a small portion of the east wall adjacent to the neighbor's addition. Map showing where photographs were taken of the existing current mock-up. So this is from the southeast corner. You can see the stair bulkhead, mechanical bulkhead, and the enclosure. Now the finished floor level will be higher, so the mock-up is perceived in the photographs taller than it actually is. So the view up at 11th Street looking west. See the mechanical enclosure, the guardrails, and in the background, the rear guardrail and chimney. The view at 11th looking east, showing the chimney and mechanical bulkhead. These are some additional photographs from the street capturing the mock-up. Resolution may not be very decipherable here, but you can see a little bit of the chimney, the mechanical bulkhead, and the guardrail. The guardrail would be a very narrow vertical baluster, painted black metal guardrail. This is another view from the east, looking towards the front elevation. It's a view of the front elevation. A little bit of the corner, you can see the top of the guardrail. And the other orange is construction fence from the neighbor. Further west on 11th, looking back east, slightly see the mechanical bulkhead and the guardrail. These are the views from Waverly Place looking west, and you can see the chimney. And a few more additional slides of existing site photographs. So before the mock-up. Sort of indicate that it is difficult to get a perspective view where much on that rooftop is visible. Some rear yard photographs. Proposed materials, new brick to match as closely as possible the existing brownstone lintels and sills, black painted metal to match the existing front doors, and lead coated copper on the bulkhead, standing seam, metal roofs and siding. This was just also a block survey map showing the existing two-story additions. Another aerial photograph showing the additions, and the left-hand side, the right-hand side was not indicated on the block map. So we didn't have the information on the areas in blue, but the areas on the left is what we had the block survey for. These were some additional slides of the rear yard showing more information on the neighbors' facades. There are also red brick facades with limestone or brownstone sills. The addition to the right, I believe, is a painted brick. Sorry, it's a white stucco, but all the rest is brick. Last one is just some more existing conditions. And the upper right shows existing conditions at the rear wall. One of the reasons the wall was being rebuilt is all the wood lintels are being replaced. The owner had a previous residence where all the wood lintels had to be replaced from the exterior. To see that down the road. This is an overlay of existing and proposed sections.
Thank you. Do we have questions? Yes, Vice Chair Bland?
All that stuff on the roof, is any of it habitable or is it?
No.
No, that's what I thought.
No, but on the, to follow up on that, there's the elliptical stair, and then there's the mechanical bulkhead, which is 8 feet above your new roof level, 8 feet 8. And you do catch pieces of that from the street. Otherwise, I think the views would be limited to chimneys and railings. So, you know, I don't know what is in that mechanical bulkhead and if there's any room to shift it down or.
I think that if we studied the section and looked more specifically at exactly the equipment in there, there probably is an opportunity to reduce it 6 to 12 inches.
Great, thanks. Yes, Commissioner Chu.
You had mentioned rebuilding the back facade essentially. And I looked at your overlay, which is really helpful to do the existing and the proposed. It's in the exact same spot.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing it's for ease because you didn't want to have to lintel up the existing wall and do all the work below it. But it is possible to keep that back facade, correct? In the upper floors.
Yeah, the upper 2 stories.
Yeah.
Masonry. Well, we initially wanted to retain that existing masonry.
Mm-hmm.
As the design developed and as more understanding of the condition of the structure was obtained, and also the complexities of maintaining those 2 stories of masonry while excavation and reframing is happening below, sort of combined to make it seem much more sensible to replace those 2. We have a letter from our structural engineer saying that the existing steel frame from the previous addition doesn't really provide adequate lateral loading that they would require, because you essentially have 2 stories supported on steel and then 2 unreinforced masonry stories above it. So by providing a full steel frame through the building, it can provide lateral loading from not only for our property, but also for the adjacent masonry buildings that are unreinforced masonry. So that the back facade and the 2-story addition is going to be all form one structure.
Could you go back to that slide? Because I think that helps. Okay. Whoop. Yeah, my general understanding of these, because it's not a super wide lot, is that if you hold a couple of feet, and again, your engineer will tell you, I'm not a structural engineer, but if you hold 2 sides of return on either end of the corners of the facade, you can open up. And those could be your piers that go to new foundations. I can see why you want to rebuild that back lower facade because you've excavated everything under it completely. But there's a chance to retain the upper 2 floors that are actually what we see. That's remnant of that's why we're more sensitive to the upper floors of the back.
Sure. I would also say as the design developed, we looked at what was the extent of manipulation to that wall while we were proposing.
Mm-hmm.
So we would have been proposing removing the masonry below the sills on 2 of the windows into French doors. We would have been replacing the interior lintels, wood lintels on 6 of those windows, and then raising the parapet height as well. So in order to, there wouldn't be much left of that original masonry, it seems, in addition to the structural issues.
Okay. I mean, I understand it's complicated, but I do know it's possible.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Ginsburg?
So following up on the bulkhead question, there seems to be a lot of space for mechanical up there. What are you putting up there?
There's, I believe, two condensers two air handlers for the third floor and a makeup air unit for the stair shaft, for makeup air for the fireplaces.
Thank you.
Other questions? Let's see if we have public testimony and we'll come back to you. Is there anyone in the room who'd like to speak on this item? Noting that there isn't, I will turn it over to Gregory Kala to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We have one hand raised on the attendees list, that being Chloe Gregoire from Village Preservation. Chloe Gregoire, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good day, Commissioners. My name is Chloe Gregoire, and I'm speaking on behalf of Village Preservation. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. Village Preservation is concerned about the extent of excavation work proposed here. The process of excavating for a deep subcellar has the potential to destabilize the building. We ask that the depth of excavation be reduced and the remaining cellar level excavation scope be carefully vetted by a qualified engineer to ensure that incompatible methods, such as pile driving, are avoided to protect the building from damage. Overall, we find the rest of the scope of work to be appropriate, though we hope consideration will be given to setting the rooftop mechanical bulkhead back further, if possible, to reduce or eliminate its visibility over the primary facade. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I do not see any further hands raised in the attendees list, so I will note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 2 recommends approval, provided that care is taken with the excavation and underground construction to ensure that the integrity of the house and neighboring structures. And with that, I will bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
Thank you. And before I turn back to the applicant, Corey, do you want to talk a little bit about the enhanced engineering review we'll be doing on our end?
Yes, this was an application identified by the staff for enhanced engineering review, either by the Department of Buildings or by our consulting structural engineer. In addition to that, we do have enhanced application materials such as SOE drawings, structural drawings, engineers reports, monitoring programs, etc. So once those are finalized, if this project were to be approved, we would pass those along to either DOB or the consulting engineer.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I'd like to ask if you'd like to respond to anything else we've heard.
Just say regarding the depth of the excavation, the finished ceiling heights are 8 feet in both spaces. There's a terrace, as you can see, in the rear yard. So there, with steel framing required to support that. So we sort of have kind of minimized the depth required that we're going down.
Okay.
Could I ask what's in that lower level?
That would be, it's also mechanical equipment, makeup air for the kitchen, and storage space. The cellar is the gym and lawn.
Yes, Commissioner Jefferson.
Where does the removing stuff goes? That's a lot of earth being moved. Where does it go?
That's an info.
So after excavation, where does the fill go? Where does the excavated earth go?
I'm not sure where it's taken away to. I'd have to consult.
Don't go there.
Yeah, couple 40-yarders out front.
Okay. Yes, Commissioner Chapin.
Yeah, the photos of the condition of the brick don't look that bad. Can you comment a little more on, for the staff, either one on the situation with the brick and why you need to replace the wall?
Well, I think it was a combination of removing what we needed to enlarge masonry openings for French doors, repairing the lintels on the inside. In fact, that we'd be adding masonry on top to extend the parapet. Mm-hmm. And then the general maintenance and improvement that was required on this brick. There's cracks in the brownstone lintels. There's repointing that would be necessary. Cumulative effect.
Right, and then I could read earlier mentioned that there were questions about the structural stability of it during the work, so, which is, something. Okay. Any other questions? All right, let's move to our discussion. Commissioner Chapin, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Goldblum. Would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the hearing is closed and we'll now
Yes, that
begin
was
our
an aye.
discussion for the proposal to construct rooftop and rear yard additions. As we've heard, the rooftop additions consist of an elliptical stair bulkhead, mechanical bulkhead, and raising chimneys and some railings. And then at the rear, it also includes an extension of the parapet in a different material to differentiate it from the newly constructed, proposed to be constructed rear wall and rear yard extension. And then there's the excavation, and we've heard about that as well. Vice Chair Bland, would you like to start?
I can start and see where we head. There's an awful lot of stuff here. And I wasn't aware of this enhanced structural analysis. What is it called?
Enhanced engineering review.
Engineering.
Yeah, about a year ago, we
Is that
launched
right?
a
Okay.
multiple buildings action plan, and
Leap
that
at the wheel.
includes, yeah, a lot of information with DOB, but also we're really focusing on earlier detection of potential risks. And one of the ways that we can do that is when applications come to us for buildings. So we have a system for identifying those that should receive enhanced engineering by our structural consultant, Don Friedman, or by the Department of Buildings, and we work collaboratively on
Well,
that.
good to hear, because this looks like a test case. I'm still not sure I understand all of the needs inherent in making such a deep foundation, deep excavation. I understand maybe lowering the cellar, but all of that other, but I'm not sure that's exactly, what we approve or not. But it does give me pause. We've had lots of recent bad experience to give us pause on these sorts of things. So I'll just note that I'm uneasy about it. But I'm not uneasy about the top two floors being rebuilt. I don't think they should be. I think they have to be kept in place, whatever that might mean. I don't know exactly. And then we've had these in the past, and they're always a problem when you want to level out a roof, which is sloping the way this is, and you retain the cornice and the windows in the back, and you level out, you end up with a big space. And how do you deal with that space on the elevation? And I'm not sure it's been done right yet. I think it's an awkward and difficult thing to pull off. But why don't I leave it almost like that and see what others are saying? I will say that all of that stuff, as I called it on the roof, it's not habitable, so presumably it's necessary. I think that's needs to be shown by staff that that's all true. The applicant has said that maybe some of it could be lowered a little bit, but much of it doesn't seem to be actually readily visible, which was a little bit of a surprise. And I rarely find that extending a chimney, unless the chimney is going to be really an egregious thing, somehow seeing chimneys above houses is pretty good. No problem with that generally. And I don't think I have a problem with the chimneys per se being extended here, or that railing in the front that they mentioned. I think that can be done very simply. So I'll leave it at that and see where others fall out.
So when you talk about leveling, it's the awkward parapet that needs to be raised at the rear. Okay. All right, Commissioner
Usually we set it back.
Commissioner Lutfi?
Oh, sorry. I was so good all day and I just forgot. Mark told me this morning. I had to turn on my mic. So, and then the rear facade, if the top two floors can be preserved with the brick, I think that's a good recommendation. I also think it would be nice to keep the original windows on the floor below the top floor.
The lengthening of the open, those would be eligible for, technically, if that was the only part of the application, those would meet the rules for a staff level approval. So, right, turning the 3 windows into French doors.
Yeah. I mean, I'm saying it would be nice to keep the windows and maybe have a door because it kind of it changes the facade. And this is, you know, there is a donut here and it relates to that. So anyway.
Okay. Commissioner Chu?
Yeah. I do feel that the rear facade, upper 2 floors, should be the existing historic wall. I think there are 2 issues that, or at least I'm responding to, is the historic fabric there, and also the change to flattening the roof increases the height in proportion in a way that's odd. And the current proposal suggests that the new wall extends higher but is clad in a different material. But I think in reality it will look very odd. If the existing masonry wall was kept at its existing height, I think there's a way to deal with the added rooftop by setting it back and even cladding that fascia, but set back from the brick facade, and it may produce a more comfortable situation where I think then we understand what was the historic house facade mass and what is the addition, and it's very clear. I think Fred mentioned something like that as well. If you set it back, you can keep it up higher, but let the existing wall height respect its condition. And then you can gain that pocket of room above that roof for your duct runs if you set it back a little more. Other than that, I think we talked a lot about our concerns about the amount of excavation. The neighboring building is this significant church, I believe, and I'm worried about that too with this base cellar, 2 cellar excavation.
Okay.
Yep.
Commissioner
And,
Mass?
and I would also echo the comment about if the applicant can work with the staff on the mass and quantity of addition on the roof by setting back from the main front facade as much as possible. So.
Okay. Commissioner Master?
Yeah, I agree with everything that Stephen said. And honestly, I don't have much to add other than that.
Commissioner Jefferson?
I also agree. I think keeping the back facade and retaining historical volume is important. And I think the excavation is way too much.
Commissioner Chapin?
Yeah, I share the concerns expressed by Commissioner Bland and Commissioner Chu and Commissioner Jefferson.
Commissioner Goldblum?
A real disagreement. I do think that the heights on the entire rooftop assembly should be examined carefully. You now have an 8'8" roof over your mechanical. I'm sure that can go down. Also, another thing is you've got the volume, the built volume of the mechanical on the street side, and you've got the kind of corral of AC on the back side. If we're kind of prioritizing visibility from the street, from the public way, you might think about flipping that. So lowering and maybe flipping, and also your oval rotunda is 9 or 10.5 feet high. That too could afford a little diet. And, once you lower and or reposition all those other things, it might allow you to lower your chimneys a little bit too, because those are probably, in some way, it's because of the neighbor's trellis. Never mind.
Okay. Right, thank you. Commissioner Ginsburg.
I agree with the facade comments of other commissioners, and I think they can work with staff on that and hopefully reducing the mechanical bulkhead.
Okay. Yes, please do.
Just, the issue of the excavation, and I think a few others, maybe everybody almost, expressed concern. But I'm glad Mark is here. And I know we can say anything we want around this table, but can we actually reject it on that basis, just feeling nervous about that? Or is that like beyond our?
We have done it a couple of ways. I mean, on some very early, small federal buildings, we have asked that the amount of excavation be reduced. Well, no, within, actually, there was proposals within the federal building, and that, but in addition to adjacent buildings. And that was also sort of, to preserve the sort of scale of the early federal building. And we have worked with applicants to reduce it to avoid underpinning where possible. So it is something that is primarily under DOB's jurisdiction, the sort of structural issues and safety issues. But as the years have gone by, and as I said, we last year launched a plan that involves much more oversight from our end and coordination with DOB as they do their oversight. And so as we do the enhanced engineering review, it may just get reduced as part of that review. Corey, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, well, I mean, I do think one thing is that in addition is that the bulk of this excavation, the very deep part, is in the rear yard. So it may pose some additional threats to the neighboring extensions. Usually we've had most concern with the actual house itself. This does have underpinning around its perimeter, so there is always that risk with that, even though it's only a few feet. But I guess that's something we can continue to work with DOB and with our consulting engineer. We could ask them to assess if there's any more risk by them going down 10 feet versus 18 feet for that extra floor. And it may be that, well, once you start doing that work, either way, it's kind of the same. But we could always be advised further on that. Consider that.
I appreciate all of that, but I think I'm asking almost a more theoretical question. Oftentimes we'll say, no, you can't remove a cornice. No, you can't do this. No, you can't do that. We'll come back and that's the way it goes. Do you think we could say, no, we're rejecting this at the Landmarks Commission? I mean, if we voted on it, to eliminate that lower level of excavation. Can we do that? Or would it be subject to a lawsuit? I mean, it's a gray area.
Every decision we make can be subject to a lawsuit.
Yeah.
Right? And the standard is the same. Is there a rational basis for the decision based on the comments, the facts, and stuff like that? So so we have a long history at the commission of approving excavations. Okay, we have just a handful of examples where things have gone south. So the question would be if one were saying no in a particular case, is why in this particular case, what is it that is making you concerned that it will have an effect, it'd be inappropriate for, endanger the adjacent building? I think that's what would need to be expressed, and the record would have to be, clear, so that the decision would be rational.
A way to approach it might be, instead of saying no in a particular situation, to say yes with kind of operational conditions. Those could relate, the merchant's house is the perfect example of where all this shows up. Setting criteria for vibrations, having monitoring neighboring buildings, requiring hand excavation as opposed to machines. You could do stuff that would express a concern. Look, I'll never forget the day I died when we walked into that basement underneath that theater in Times Square, you were there. When they basically jacked that theater up 60 feet. It was an amazing thing. And the lesson that I learned from that is that you can pretty much do anything if you have enough money and if you hire the right people. So, I think that you could express a concern about damage being caused to a neighboring or this historic structure. But, it might be, put it this way, you could turn a yes into a no by putting conditions on things like that. And if you just required hand excavation, for instance, you're going to really sort the wheat from the chaff in terms of who wants to go there.
Well, maybe that's what will happen.
Exactly. I think that's the whole point of the enhanced engineering oversight that we now do, is that we can parse this out, really identify, which are the most critical areas and what criteria we need to establish to ensure safety, and that will weed things out. So that's the whole point of the enhanced engineering review. Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. And also I think it's, helpful that Corey pointed out that the lower excavation is actually at the rear yard and not under the main building. So, all right. So we, of course, with the condition that this continue to go through that enhanced oversight, I think we can go ahead and support it with also the conditions that the upper two floors be retained, and that the parapet solution that the parapet be set back and better resolved with staff, and that all the rooftop equipment also be studied in terms of its visibility.
Also allowed that rooftop condition that Fred talked about, like a answer.
A little cant. Yeah.
I remember a few cases where
Well, I think what we're going to do is allow staff to, okay. Big leap of faith, but not too big of a leap. Okay, in the matter of 230 West 11th Street, in the Greenwich Village Historic District, this is an application to construct rooftop and rear yard additions, alter the rear facade, and excavate the cellar and rear yard. I note that the building style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute. That's something in my okay. Where am I? Are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Greenwich Village Historic District. I recommend approval with a couple of modifications. That the demolition of the rear yard additions will not alter or eliminate any significant architectural features. That the proposed rear yard addition will not be visible from a public thoroughfare. That the proposed two-story rear yard addition will not rise to the full height of the building and will align with the adjacent additions in terms of height and projection, and therefore will not overwhelm the building or diminish the central green space. That the design and materiality of the rear yard addition, featuring brick cladding and punched openings with black finished door assemblies, brownstone lintels and metal railings, will be in keeping with the material palette of the rear of other rear yard additions on the block, and will maintain a residential scale. That the excavation of the proposed below-grade addition will not extend to the rear property line, and the work will be done in compliance with Department of Buildings regulations under the supervision of a licensed professional engineer to protect the building's facades and adjacent buildings. That the work of the upper floors of the rear facade will only be visible at oblique angles from Waverly Place, and that the proposed rooftop addition will not be seen over the front facade from directly across the street, and that the use of gray metal cladding and neutral finishes at the proposed rooftop addition will be typical of rooftop additions found throughout the historic district. Further, though, I recommend that the historic upper two floors of the rear facade be retained as in current condition. That the raised roof be revised in consultation with staff, to resolve that condition by setting the new parapet back somewhat from the existing wall of the existing building, and that the rooftop addition, chimney extension, and railing be studied to reduce visibility.
Thank you. Commissioner Lutfi, would you second that motion?
Second.
Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Bland. Commissioner Chapin,
Aye.
Commissioner Chu,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum, Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi,
Aye.
Commissioner Master.
Aye.
With 9 in favor, none opposed, the motion passes.
So that's approved with those conditions. Please continue to work with the staff on that. All right, thank you. We'll move to the next item.
The next item is public hearing item number 11, LPC 24-00943, an application for a certificate of appropriateness, number of Manhattan, block 1841, lot 143, 40 West 106th Street in the Manhattan Avenue Historic District. This is a Queen Anne style row house with Romanesque revival elements designed by CPH Gilbert and built 1886 to 87. The application is to legalize the installation of a rear deck and stair without LPC permits.
You'll have to pull it right up to you. They're having difficulty on Zoom hearing us.
My name is Joe Urso of the Preservation Department staff. 460 West 106th Street is located in the Manhattan Avenue Historic District, and it is one of a row of 3 Queen Anne Romanesque row houses. I would like to emphasize that the proposed work is at the rear facade and is not visible from the street. As you can see by this bird's eye view of the block, the inside of the block is enclosed at the west and south by additional row houses with rear Ls of varying heights, and to the east by 2 larger developments. This is the current condition showing you the extent of work that has already been completed on site. Elevation shows condition before construction. This elevation shows you proposed work by contrast. These 2 plans, you can see the plan before construction began on the right and the proposed conditions on the left. This is just quickly an elevation showing windows that were removed at the 2nd floor of the rear facade in conjunction with the building of the deck to install sliding glass doors with fixed transom. I just want to say that this portion of the project complies with the rules, so it can be approved at staff level. We're just showing it to you for the sake of context, and it's just the proposed deck and stair that are up for discussion today. So there are no other second-story decks within the immediate context of the block, but this shows you an idea of the other buildings which have roof terraces on their rear extensions circled in red, and some detailed photographs showing you their railings. I want to finish on a rendering of the proposed work, and I would like to further say the applicant is present and is ready to answer any questions you may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Commissioners, do we have any questions? We're looking at this deck and stair. All right, let's see if we have public testimony. We may have questions after that. Yes, go ahead, Commissioner.
Why
Lutfi.
were you doing the work without our approval?
Just start by stating your name.
My name is Andre Krell. I'm an owner for 40 West 106. I work in the cyber special operations. I was asked to assist in the Middle East situation. And while dealing with the human life I dropped my civilian life. I hired an architect called Kevin McRae, who filed the first documentation for a letter of no effect. And I can provide the payments. I can provide a conversation where he stated he's going to submit the paperwork. And he did not. And I'm not saying it's not my guilt. Again, I should be more involved. But then you are 11 hours in a different time zone, and you just drop your civilian life. You're welcome.
Thank you. All right. All right. Yes, please come up and to the podium and state your name. You'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Testimony via email yesterday. My name is Elizabeth Kellner, so I will not attempt to repeat that. I own a home for 46 years on the same block as 40 West 106th Street. There are 17 houses on that block, and there are 37 houses all totaled in the Manhattan Avenue Historic District. It is our houses are narrow, were constructed as middle-class homes. They have no basement. The interior width is only 15 feet. They are an enclave within a neighborhood that is overwhelmingly people of color, working class, and low income. They are an anchor to the community. I care deeply about this neighborhood. I raise my children there. My children and my grandchildren come. That is why I was the one who called the Department of Buildings when I saw the staircase and resulted in the stop work order. I attended the community board meetings at which it would discuss. I do realize, having renovated 134 Manhattan Avenue as a project myself in 2009 to 2012, that what you see from the street is important. But what we landmark townhouse owners now see in our yards, in our precious donut, is very important to us as well. And the staircase is unnecessary, unsightly, and dangerous, and there is nothing like it anywhere else on the block. Much of the work that was highlighted as being already in existence was done pre-landmarking in 2007. I know every house on the block. I know the interior condition. I know every house in the neighborhood and who owns it and what was done before landmarking and what was done after landmarking. So I really see no architectural or safety requirement from this staircase, which I know my neighbors, my nickname is the mayor of Manhattan Avenue, because I'm the one everybody calls when something's going on. And I'm the one that came here today. I'm a retired lawyer. I'm home a lot. I see what goes on. I'm not afraid to speak up. So thank you for your time. And his family, I welcome them to the neighborhood because the renters in that house were a nightmare. He thinks he disparaged me at the community board meeting. He's shaking his head. He won't even speak to me, which is why some of my neighbors declined to come today. But I do welcome you and your family. I welcome all people to our neighborhood, even though he accused me of being anti-immigrant at a public meeting.
Okay, thank you for your testimony. We have a couple of hands raised on the attendees list. The first we'll be hearing from is Megan Giola Fadreg. I am promoting you to panelist right now. And if you could please unmute your line and state your name for the record, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
This is Megan Fitzpatrick speaking on behalf of Landmark West. The Landmark West Certificate of Appropriateness Committee vehemently opposes legalization of work installed without LPC permits. When property owners ignore the Landmarks law and make changes without the Commission's guidance and consent, all too frequently the results are at best unremarkable and at worst destructive. In either case, the practice of legalizing alterations after the fact, in essence, penalizes property owners who often go to great lengths to comply with Landmarks regulations by rewarding those who flout the law. Our committee believes there is no part of this application that is appropriate for a landmark building. The assembly, which doesn't have DOB pre-filing, includes an illegally installed balcony deck and metal stairs, and were first brought to our attention by neighbours whose vigilance led to a stop work order being placed on this building. The half-installed construction is out of scale for a 16-foot wide landmark. The amenity patio is unnecessary for egress, and the stair extends too far into the rear yard. We lament the constant encroachment upon the donut in our neighbourhood. However, this is one of the most egregious examples we've seen. A unique feature of this small historic district is the donut that functions as a sort of open courtyard. This stair threatens the integrity of this feature, which neighbours constantly advocate to preserve. Our committee believes there is no aspect of this application that should be approved, and we implore the Commission to reject it and wonder if a fine should be imposed. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we'll be hearing from Lucy Levine from the Historic Districts Council. Lucy Levine, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Lucy Levine. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HDC asks LPC not to legalize this rear stair, which appears to us both stylistically inappropriate and functionally dangerous. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I am looking through the attendees list now, and I see no further hands raised. So I will note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 7 recommends denial due to the material and size of penetration of stairway into the yard and the material and construction of the balcony. And with that, I'll bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
Okay. I'd like to ask if you'd like to respond to the comments we've heard.
When I acquired the building, and I came from a region where my father was a political prisoner, and most people got buried in houses by former regime. There was a tenant living on the first 2 floors. And according even to New York Building Code, you should have an egress point to the building, which this building doesn't have in wooden construction. So for that reason, it was proposed that if the stairs or balcony is built, there will be actually fire escape route for my family to leave the building. Without that stairs and balcony, if the building gets on fire, we are trapped in the building, right? Because the entrance is on the lower floor. So for us, it is a matter of safety that the stairs or something is built at the back of the building. Now, financially, I understand the neighbors, and I truly appreciate everybody in. When I bought it, my commercial loan really states certificate of occupancy for 2 families. If I want to convert this, it means for me financial constraints that might not able to afford it and going to lose the house, which is in a favor of what I heard some of the neighbors, because I would have to give up the place that I could actually live with family. In addition to the neighbor who presented, one of my contractors actually helped to build the bathroom, fix the bathroom of the individuals who did not offer me to pay for it, right? There's a tree in the property that's in my property from exactly the neighbor that you heard that I don't believe should be there. And it's not removed, and it's hanging over my property. There were multiple conversations of me stopping me on the street and asking me, how am I financing the property? I'm not comfortable to do that. There are multiple rumors of me being affiliated with Mr. Putin or Olga. I've served in special ops, and I provided 2 letters where I served 8 indictments to the nation state actor, including 30 from the regions that you know of, and 2 cyber intelligence operations. So I'm not affiliated with any Russian oligarchs. Neither want to be affiliated because I have accent, or my kids might have accent, treated as immigrants in a neighborhood. The same way, the comments of how immigrants have to be tolerated in a neighborhood, because over 40 years it was owned by other individuals, I also consider these comments highly disrespectful to me and my family. Thank you.
We'll have some questions. Commissioner Goldblum, followed by Vice Chair Flynn.
Is there any reason for the layout of the stair? Why would it go into the yard this way as opposed to, let's say, zigzag back?
So the way the architect proposed, because it's almost 18 feet high, the backyard is excavated, there's actually wall that's coming around the stairs. So it was the less visible, and it would not be actually visible even to the neighbors, right? So you will have to walk to my property to actually see the stairs. So the picture, for example, they were presented to community board where Ms. Kellner walking to my property and taking a picture of my property and sending it to community board, how stairs is here.
So you're saying that this current layout is the least visible from other locations?
It's not even visible, for example, from Ms. Kellner property.
Right, so
May I walk
the
in?
photo that,
No.
the photo that was taken, that's in the application, is that taken from a neighbor's property?
From my property.
They're taken from your property. So from a neighbor's property, because you're low down in your garden, you would see it, obviously you're up floor.
The information you will not be able to see it because it's 15 feet buried. So basically, if you go to one of the slides, it will be the elevation. The elevation from the street is 3 feet, and the backyard is almost 18 feet buried in the ground. And the street goes up to here, which means from 106 to 105, there's maybe around 15 to 20 feet incline.
Okay, thanks.
All right, Vice Chair Bland?
How about just a basic question or an observation? There are many, all over the city, single-family houses that have been converted to 3, 4, 5, and more units. And my question, I guess, is, was this wasn't approved at DOB, I gather?
Correct. I do have an original certificate of occupancy.
I mean, you decided what would be safe for your family and built this, I think, is what I'm understanding.
That is correct.
Okay. I think if you went to DOB with an architect or engineer and tried to get something approved, it would not be this. It would be something else. There are many examples of how this is done. It's done all the time. And there are escape routes, they're, on the backs, on the back of the house, but it's not done into a rear yard. So
Does allow for egress into a rear yard for buildings of a certain dimension.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
It is. I found that out. But the configuration of the stair would be like a fire escape where like the last
Yes.
8 to 10 feet would be the ladder.
With the ladder, right. So I guess my question is, usually we have to assure that there's been a zoning okay at the buildings department before we review something. But also, it would seem to me that this should have a building department okay in terms of the layout, as opposed to just a homeowner taking it on themselves.
They'll have to go to DOB after they go to LPC. But just to follow up on the earlier question, so is that a retaining wall next to your stair? And is the rear yard above your stair on the adjacent property? I'm just trying to understand the levels back here.
Yes, the back part, this is actually a neighbor property. Right. This may be around 13 feet above your. Yeah, the excavate, so basically excavate. So there's a retaining wall. There is correct. There's a retaining wall, right? There's against. And it's against the wall, so it's not really visible.
Okay, so it's not projecting into the middle of a green space because it's next to a retaining wall.
And that was the reason why it was designed that way, so it would basically not be visible and would be less destructive to the layout for the neighbors, for everybody in the community.
And what is that fence in the foreground?
Well, so this is, because this is excavated, the backyard continues almost like a cascade, so it goes like a zigzag. So this is the highest ground still of my property, which probably at this point is around maybe 18 feet above the excavated.
So it's like a terrace, like.
It's like a sunken terrace.
Steps.
Yeah, cascading terraces, it's basically the first terrace, second terrace, third terrace, and the fourth terrace is the neighbor across.
And the neighbor next to you, this side, though, just down at your level.
So this neighbor is next 11. This neighbor is basically there's a wall, right?
So he's a sunken
Very-
terrace, except for the neighbor to the right. So the stair is going down below everybody else.
This section?
Right in the middle.
Right here? Yeah. So when I acquired the building, they basically built like a glass section here. Between
Pre-existing.
kind of that glass flower closing the work garden. That's how I acquired the property.
I mean, do you open that door and go out on that?
At the bottom, tenant has.
Oh, I see.
So
Okay,
basically-
I got it.
Would it be easier if we saw the photograph?
Yeah, let's start with this.
Yeah, yeah.
Wait a minute, stop right there.
Thank
Back,
you.
back.
All right.
So there, you're looking from your yard, the neighbor left.
This one is my neighbors on the right. This one is a neighbor across of my neighbor.
Where is your house in this photo?
My house is at this location here, and in this location, the house is right here. So this neighbor.
This is what you see when you look out your window, when you look at the backyard?
That is correct.
But your stair goes down from
But
here.
this is from, this was taken from,
That's pretty.
not the window, but the,
One of your terraces?
in my backyard.
Right, where it goes up.
From the top, yes,
Right.
complete top.
So your
The neighbor
stairs.
to your backyard is on this round aside, the guy next to you side, the
That's
guy
correct.
next, but on the other side is low.
Yeah, on the left side is excavated, but everybody else is at least like.
All right, just keep on going.
All right, Commissioner Ginsburg?
Yeah, I have a question, and I can't tell from the drawings, but I think you're only allowed to have a run of 10 or 11 feet without a landing. And so I'm not sure that the long leg of the stair meets code. And so I also think that there could be some design possibilities where if instead of it coming out, it came back and could pick up the terrace at the lower floor, but that's another issue. But before we approve this, I want to know that stair meets code.
Okay. All right, so I think there's a sort of a process issue because applicants come to LPC before they go to DOB. But once we get into our discussion, if it does seem that a stair and deck are appropriate, I mean, the deck is sort of nestled in next to the L, so it's really the stair that comes out beyond it. You know, if conceptually a stair could be okay, we could leave it to staff to work with them to make sure that they coordinate with DOB and it's something that meets code and is as tight to the building as possible. Okay.
That would, yeah, but I just want to flag that we may be seeing it again.
Well, Mark is right. Typically, code, you can't run over 12 feet without landing. That's straight.
Right.
Yeah.
Looks so steep.
It looks very steep.
I mean, I would be like worried about going down those steps.
But again, because if it's an old code job and he's doing it under old code, then the rise and run on fire escapes is pretty steep.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
is this being filed as a fire escape?
You could pick your code.
But he's using it as a second means of egress for the tenant. He doesn't have the first two floors.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So as commissioners, how do we feel? I think we have to close the hearing, right? I haven't done that yet. Okay. Commissioner Lutfi, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. Commissioner Master, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed, and I think that this is a complex backyard with many different levels, and I think that the deck is nestled in next to the L, and itself doesn't project beyond the L or the neighbor's L. So it's really a question of a stair, and if we are comfortable conceptually approving a stair, that then they would coordinate with DOB to ensure that it meets the appropriate code and has the proper rise and tread proportions and a landing in the proper place and can still be tucked in either folding it back or against the retaining wall, because it's, in sort of a pit. We can do that and leave it to the staff. If it turns out it gets substantially bigger, they can come back to us. Does everybody feel okay with that?
As long as the construction is, I would say it should be like typical of a fire escape.
Like a metal?
Black painted metal, slab. And also, I think the applicant should know that from a fire safety perspective, whether or not that stair is required, and I'll bet you that it's not, the safer move, which would be a certificate of no effect, would be to sprinkler your stairwell. That's a much more common move in multifamily townhouses. Again, I don't think it's required here, but it's a much more effective way, because in that fire that you described, you're stuck in the backyard with timbers falling on your head, whereas if you sprinkler the stair, you can get out to the street.
Okay. All right, let me go ahead and make a motion here.
The issue is, to buy a piece of property on the lawyers, you have people telling you what you're in a historic district. You know that. And if you go ahead and do it.
Well, I think
I
he
mean, how do
thought
you-
his contractor had filed and gotten the permits, and he was out of the country. So, okay. In the matter of docket number 24-00943, 40 West 106th Street in the Manhattan Avenue Historic District, a Queen Anne style row house with Romanesque revival style elements designed by CPH Gilbert and built in 1886 to 87. This is an application to legalize the installation of a rear deck and stair without Landmarks Preservation Commission permits. And I note that the building style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the historic district. I recommend approval with modifications, finding that the proposed work did not eliminate or damage any significant architectural features, that the second-story deck is installed and stairs are installed at plain masonry and are not visible from a public thoroughfare, that the deck does not project any deeper than the existing rear extension of this house or the neighboring house, and that the deck and stair assembly designed to recall a fire escape, a common feature at a secondary facade of multi-unit buildings in this historic district, would be consistent in terms of size, material, and utilitarian design. And that within the varied context of this block and with the level changes at the rear yards resulting in a stair going down into a grade lower than the surrounding grades, deck and stairs would not detract from the building or adjacent buildings. However, I recommend that the applicant work closely in consultation with the staff and the Department of Buildings to ensure that the stair be designed to meet code and that such modifications to meet code do not project or substantially encroach on the central green space more than the existing does. And if it does substantially increase, the applicant can come back to us. And I think it's clear, but we are also stating that it be black painted metal to recall a fire escape. I just said that. Okay. All right, Commissioner Goldblum, would you second that motion?
Second.
All right, Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Bland, Commissioner Chapin,
Aye.
Commissioner Chu,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum, Commissioner Jefferson,
Nay.
Commissioner Lutfi, Commissioner Master.
Aye.
With eight in favor and one opposed, the motion passes.
All right, so that's approved, but some modifications. Please continue to work closely with the staff. All right, we'll move to the next item.
Next item is public hearing item number 12, LPC 24-05326, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 1398, Lot 62, 128 East 64th Street in the Upper East Side Historic District. This is a neo-Greek style row house with classical details designed by James E. Ware and built in 1878, and the application is to modify a masonry opening.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. For the Artist Preservation Department staff, this application is for 128 and 64th Street. It is located on the south side of the street between Lexington and Park Avenues. These are this is showing existing conditions of the building. The proposal only involves work at the base of the ground floor. The proposal is to remove a modern 1/1 double hung window, the wood sill beneath it, and a louver beneath that, and replace them with a door. It will also involve the removal of a historic window grill in front of the window. This shows the existing and the proposed condition. You can see the existing window, the wood sill beneath it, and the louver, and the proposed door. This is the partially below grade areaway. This shows the building in the 40s, the current condition. It was part of a row of 4 buildings. So here what you're seeing is actually the buildings that are not part of the same row. The row goes to the left. So you can see the Durrell Stone building next to it. That is part of the same row. And then 2 buildings further on that you can't see in this photo, which have both been altered. So the other 2 buildings in the row that you can't see in these photos to the left of the Durrell Stone building, they have had their stoops removed and their below grade areaway is gone, but they do actually still have the security grills at the basement level, just slightly modified. That is the proposal. So if you have questions, the applicant.
Okay, so just to be clear, Bernadette, they're removing the window and non-historic louvers underneath the window to install a door that would have a grill that replicates the historic grill.
So
Okay.
they will not be retaining, the notes in front of you indicate that they would be retaining that grill, but they are actually not proposing to replace them.
Using the design.
As I was flipping through, you may notice that there was a tall fence and a tall area gate. Both of those were installed in violation and are removed at staff. A low area fence that will block part of the.
Is there a panel or decorative on that floor?
Okay, any other questions? All right, let's see if there's any testimony. Is there anyone in the room who would like to speak on this item? Noting that there isn't, I will turn it over to Gregory to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We have a couple of hands raised on the attendees list. The first we'll be hearing from is Nuha Ansari from the Friends of the Upper East Side. Nuha Ansari, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Chair Carroll, Honourable Commissioners, Friends Preservation Committee does not object to the modification of the existing basement window at this row house to create a new door. We find this is a restrained and elegant solution that respects the existing masonry opening while improving access to the basement level. We also commend the applicants on their proposal to replicate the historic iron grillwork on the new door. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we'll be hearing from Lucy Levine from the Historic Districts Council. Lucy Levine, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Lucy Levine. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HDC applauds and supports this sensitive approach to modifying a masonry opening, which incorporates the existing window grille into the new door. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I do not see any further hands raised in the attendees list. So I will note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 8 recommends approval. And with that, I'll bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
All right, thank you. And I know it's, before we turn back to you, I just want to congratulate Nuha Ansari, who is now the new executive director at the Friends of the Upper East Side Historic District. So we've been hearing from you regularly, but now we are hearing from you with your new hat as executive director. So congratulations. Anyway, I will turn it back to you. Is there any final comment you'd like to make before we move to our discussion?
With the architectural team on this project, just one thing that I wanted to mention is the circulation. One of the reasons why we're taking this approach is because the access to the basement is underneath the stoop stairs, and it's very tight, it's a low ceiling, so that would be able to direct access from the street, just making it easier to access the main level of the house.
Thank you. All right, if there are no other questions, we'll move to our discussion. Commissioner Master, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. Commissioner Jefferson, would you second that motion?
So second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so the hearing is closed. This is an application to replace the window and non-historic louver below it, and remove the historic grill and install a new door with a similar grill, replicating the design of the grill on the door. And this building was part of a row that of four that is now every other building in that row has been altered. So this is not a repetitive condition at the block. Commissioner Chapin, would you like to start this one?
Yeah, sure. I think this is totally appropriate. It's not really removing any historic material, and it's returning it to a condition which is much more appropriate to the building and to the district.
Commissioner Jefferson. Commissioner Master.
Agreed.
Thank you. Commissioner Chu.
A nice proposal, appropriate.
All right. Commissioner Ginsburg.
No, appropriate.
Okay. Everybody agree? Okay. All right. So I think we can go ahead and make a motion to approve that. Commissioner Chapin, would you do that?
Yes. In the matter of a certificate of appropriateness, Borough of Manhattan, LPC 2405326, 128 East 64th Street, Upper East Side Historic District. A neo-Gregg-style row house with classical details designed by James F. Ware and built in 1878. Application is to modify masonry opening. Excuse me. I note that the building style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to special architectural and historic character of the Upper East Side Historic District. I recommend approval, finding that the removal of the modern window, wood sill, and louver will not eliminate any historic fabric, that the historic ironwork will be retained and incorporated in the design of the new door, that the design of the store will recall aspects of the historic window and support the unity of fenestration throughout the facade, that the door will be partially below grade and screened by fencing, that the neighboring buildings in the row have been altered, including the reconfiguration of their ground floors. Therefore, the proposed work will not detract from a unifying feature of the row, and that the work will not detract from the special architectural and historic character of the building or the Upper East Side Historic District.
Thank you. Commissioner Jefferson, would you second that motion?
So second.
All right. Mark?
Chair Carroll.
Aye.
Commissioner Bland. Commissioner Chapin.
Aye.
Commissioner Chu.
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg.
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum. Commissioner Jefferson.
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi.
Aye.
Commissioner Master.
Aye.
With 9 in favor, none opposed, the motion passes.
All right, that's approved. Thank you. And we'll move to the next item.
The next item is public hearing item number 13, LPC 24-06416. An application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 1384, Lot 7502, 828 to 850 Madison Avenue in the Upper East Side Historic District. This is a neo-Renaissance style hotel building designed by George F. Pelham and built in 1925 to 26. The application is to install storefront infill and signage.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Cass Stackelberg, Higgins Grace Parking Partners. See you again. Joined by our project team, the designer for the project, Griffin Frazen, and Rick Lukoc from Design Republic, or the architects of record. The scope of work here at the historic Hotel Westbury is for new storefront infill at the southern 7 bays of the building. It's a block-fronted building, 200 feet along Madison Avenue. And the area of work are three bays of new storefront infill on the 69th Street side and 4 bays at the corner on the Madison Avenue side of the building. The Hotel Westbury is a 15-story hotel building. It was designed by George Pelham and completed in 1926. And what we're proposing is simply 7 bays of storefront infill. And the proposal is simple, but unfortunately the context is a little bit confusing. So I'm going to take a little bit of time to step back and give you a little bit of history, particularly about the way storefronts generally are regulated on Madison Avenue, and then specifically how they've been regulated at this building, because I think it's important in the context of the proposal to understand both of those elements. As you may know, in 2001, the Commission approved a Madison Avenue storefront master plan. It's something that guides storefront infill from about East 60th Street up to the upper reaches of the Upper East Side Historic District. And if one abides by the regulations under the master plan, the staff can approve the scope of work. You all, and I assume most applicants follow the master plan for Madison Avenue. That's why you don't see many applications for new storefront infill along this stretch. And the Madison Avenue master plan was developed to sort of add or allow for flexibility for retailers. And it certainly, in the language of the master plan, it acknowledges the history of Madison as a shopping street, and also talks about the character of the storefronts along Madison Avenue, about how they reflect the contemporary architecture, or the storefronts are typically of contemporary architecture, and that often there is an emphasis on transparency, and that transparency is derived from large areas of glass. And that collectively, both in terms of the contemporary architecture of the infill and their transparency, help make this stretch along Madison Avenue very sort of vibrant shopping street. That's highlighted sort of here, and in this paragraph, there's discussion about the sort of regulatory perspective of the purpose of the master plan. It acknowledges the frequency of storefront change along Madison Avenue as spaces turn over and retailers change. And it also meant to allow for quick review based on this sort of set of criteria. The master plan has a color coding. All the storefronts in 2001 were color coded. Green indicates that there's no historic infill at the base, the first or second floor of the building, and so an applicant can do almost anything within the masonry frame. Red would indicate that there is historic fabric and very little change can occur there. Red stripe means that there's a mix of historic storefront infill in a sort of repetitive manner across the base of the storefront. Yellow would indicate that buildings at that time had consistent infill, either historic or non-historic. And then the blue storefronts are buildings that are commission-approved new buildings or buildings that are subject to an MOU for a special permit. So the idea was that this acknowledged the sort of contemporary nature of storefront infill and the transparency that came with it, but also one that allowed for flexibility and quick review. Just a couple pages from the master plan. So this is the block front on Madison between 64th and 65th Street, the east side of the block. So this 1950s apartment building here had a consistent non-historic but contemporary infill. So it had this yellow coating, and the idea was that there would be consistent infill going forward, not necessarily historic, but consistent contemporary infill going forward. And the other bays here, these mid-block row houses converted, had green infill. And you can see the sort of very transparent large glass storefront windows that have been installed here. And then this bay to the south, also actually a George Pelham building, large scale, that actually at the time didn't have consistent infill, so it had green coating across the base, and you can see the range of infill within the masonry frames at the block front there. And then just one other page here, this is a few blocks to the north, the east side of 70th Street between 69th and 70th, sorry, the east side of Madison between 69th and 70th. So this yellow coating for contemporary consistent infill within historic frames, and then green and red coating across the base. But you can see the sort of contemporary nature of the infill, and particularly these large areas of glazing. That is pretty consistent across the avenue up and down. So turning back to 828 Madison and the area of work. So our proposal, as I mentioned, are the seven southernmost bays of the ground floor. There's a building entry here, and historically there was a building entry into the hotel here. This has now been converted to a retail entry. But the 3 bays on 69th Street and the 4 bays on Madison are part of the area of work. And you can see what's there today is a granite bulkhead, anodized aluminum framing, awnings, and sconces mounted onto the piers. Sorry, this just go back. This northernmost bay, this is this bay here. This has different infill. This is a painted aluminum with a slightly different set of details on the northernmost bay within the lease area. Looking elsewhere up Madison Avenue, there are bays with this 4-inch heavier frames or brass frame, the anodized aluminum. So there is actually quite a bit of variety currently across the base of the building along Madison Avenue. And then a few other photographs along Madison showing the varying details that exist to the areas to the north. You can just see this bay. This is the part of the scalloped glass marquee at the center of the Madison Avenue elevation. And then some detailing to the north showing that brass framing, the awnings, and the sconces. In 2018, this is where the story gets a little complicated. In 2018, there was a presentation before the commission for a master plan that was approved. And at that time, this is a page from that master plan. Again, a Beyer-Blinder-Bell master plan. I feel like Commissioner Bland, I'm constantly bringing up your work today. This was a representation of all the infill among the 20 bays that existed in 2018. And you can see there's actually quite a bit of variety among these bays. So even though this building is coded yellow in the Madison Avenue storefront master plan, there actually was quite a bit of variety when this application came forward. And so we highlighted the areas of work here, and you can see those bays with the anodized aluminum and the painted storefront on the northernmost bay. But this is really a page from the master plan indicating the variety that existed at that time. And a proposal, this is the proposed elevation from that 2018 master plan, which attempted to sort of bring uniformity to those 20 bays. So with granite base, a 2-inch bronze frame, awnings, and a transom. And this was, as I mentioned, presented and approved in 2018. That's the Madison Avenue elevation. Here's the 69th Street elevation, the 3 bays here adjacent to the building entry on 69th Street. Last year, there was an approval for changes for all of these storefront bays, or most of these storefront bays here, that actually didn't follow that building master plan. And it basically included overcladding some of the anodized aluminum with the brass. And so this stretch, these 2 bays, the historic building entry and all the bays here, and then turning the corner onto 70th Street will actually, this is being constructed in the next couple months by a new tenant who has a 20-year lease with a 10-year extension. So perhaps 30 years, this infill will actually not match that master plan that was presented back in 2018. And there are a series of details, and you can see, so this is what was in place in this bay, and they're proposing basically overclad elements with that 4-inch brass cladding in those bays. And then this bay here, which is an entry bay with the Herculite doors, they are proposing will be installing these brass frame doors and transom up in the northern end of the storefront. Some details from that approval from last year, just indicating some of the detailing how the sort of overcladding is being done. So turning back to the history of the building, I think this is sort of worth noting. This is a corner view, 69th Street here, Madison Avenue here, and then this is the 70th Street elevation of 828. And one thing you can see is the storefronts have these very large glazed windows. They were constructed with awnings, retractable awnings, and you can see in this photo, the bays along the southern portion of the base of the building, at least in this photograph and even in this, didn't have their awnings deployed. Because they're retractable awnings, one can have them out, one can have them in, and so you had variety, particularly with the awnings, as early as the 1940s, soon after the building's completion. So turning to our proposal, this is an existing elevation on 69th Street and our proposed elevation. So we're proposing new bronze framed infill with a granite base. And you can see there's a main store entry here. There's a separate entry here that will serve as a service entry, and large transparent glass with a bronze header with signage, and I'll show you that in detail elevation in just a moment. But consistency obviously across that elevation, an existing elevation in detail, and a proposed elevation in detail again. A granite base, and I have material samples here, which I'll show you in just a moment. A granite base, bronze frame storefront infill, and then a bronze header that dimensional letters will be applied onto also in bronze. The entries to accommodate code requirements will be recessed. The returns on the limestone piers will be restored back to limestone. And we're proposing just small bronze letters set into the concrete, and very small signage, 3-inch dimensional letters adhered to the piers, and 6-inch letters on the sign bands at the headers of the windows. Turning the corner onto Madison Avenue, so an overall existing elevation of Madison, and then a proposed elevation showing the new infill that we're proposing adjacent to the existing infill directly to the north. A detail elevation of the existing condition where you can see the variety that already exists within those bays. And then our proposal, which includes, again, a store entry right at the corner on Madison with a recessed entry to allow for the outswing of the door, 3-inch dimensional letters on the piers, this band across the header of the storefronts, and then along the side of the northernmost bay with all done in medium statuary bronze and a dark statuary letter adhered to that bronze. So again, highly transparent, sort of in keeping with the character of the district. We put this elevation together just to sort of make the point that currently there is not consistency even along the northern portion of the base of the building. So this is our proposal in the context of the existing elevation, in the context of the 2018 of the presentation and approval for a master plan, and then in the context of what was recently approved last year. And the point of putting this together is just to indicate that even if we were to abide by what was approved under the master plan, it would still be different than what was approved last year here for these northern bays on Madison. So while there was an effort under the master plan to have consistency, that has actually been sort of lost by just what is being installed along this northern extension. And so this tenant who is moving in or starting construction later this spring has a 20-year lease with a 10-year extension. So for a long time, there will be a sort of discrepancy along the base. So I think the consideration is sort of the appropriateness of the infill in its immediate context. And this is an elevation similar to the previous without the awnings, just illustrating the sort of scale of the openings, the transparency, and I think the clear legibility at the base of the building of that rhythm between the bays, which are uninterrupted with the rusticated limestone piers that carry across both Madison Avenue, 69th and 70th Street elevations. Just looking at a detailed plan existing on the left, proposed on the right of the area of work. Again, the main entry would be at the corner, a service entry here, and then key plan here, just illustrating where the area of work is located. These are some details from that 2018 presentation, just showing this very simple 2-inch frame bronze system that's very similar to what we're proposing. It's a medium statuary bronze 2-inch framing element, elegant, simple, and really appropriate, we think, for a building of this type. And then some details and elevations and some details on the signage. This is that 11-inch bronze band at the header of the window with a 6-inch letter applied to it, 3-inch letters at the framing, the store entry at the corner, and then just etched glass at the door. Some further detailing. Again, this detail picks up the detailing that one sees in that 2018 master plan, the 2-inch frame abutting the limestone pier, and then the restored limestone at the building entry, or the store entry rather, where the infill is recessed. Some sectional details just illustrating the way the infill works. The sill height is variable as it is all the way up Madison because of the slope of the sidewalk. There's a security gate at the entries that will, of course, be set inboard behind the glass of the door. Some further sections, happy to come back to these if there are any questions. In terms of materiality, I'll just set these on the table, you can pass them around. A medium statuary bronze for the framing, for lettering, and then a gray granite across the base, and you can see those reflected here and highlighted in the elevation. And then finally, just a rendering sort of illustrating the proposed infill. Again, this is at the southern 7 bays of a full block front building. We think in terms of the scale of the building and its legibility remains very, very clear, even with this infill that is distinct from what is directly to the north, and the scale of the building can sort of take this kind of variety. I think also the legibility, as I mentioned, of this sort of rhythm of the bay divided by the limestone piers is really uninterrupted. And also, I think it's clear from this rendering that historic entries here on the west end of the 69th Street elevation and at the center of the Madison Avenue elevation, those are the sort of the primary bays along these two streets. I think that is obviously uninterrupted. And then finally, in terms of the design and the materiality, it's this sort of elegant, simple detailing in noble materials. And we think even though there will be some variety across the base of the building, that this is appropriate infill, particularly given the goals of that underlying Madison Avenue master plan, which puts an emphasis on contemporary architecture for the storefront infill and also transparency. I think together those will all really point to and support the vibrancy of the street.
Thank you. We have some questions. Commissioner Goldblum?
Was there ever a time when it's called diversity?
So the only photos that we could find that were clear of this building was the tax photo, and we spent a lot of time looking. So I don't know, but the only so the 1940 tax photo, which is 14 years after completion, it looks like the original infill was there. So there was a transom and a large window.
And similarly on that photo, it looked like there were canvas awnings that went all the way across on both
in the tax photo. Right, they were retractable awnings. Right.
And so and amidst all the diversity of et cetera, has there ever been a case where there was a proposal for no transom bar or no canopy, which seems to be your application?
Right.
Your application had no transom bar, had no canopy.
Right.
So has there been other applications where that's been approved?
So the application, so last year's application is reusing the existing awnings, I believe, with new signage, and the 2018 application had awnings in every bay. Right.
And they all had transom.
Yes.
So, but just to speak a little beyond this building, as Cass was saying, the Madison Avenue master plan was developed to recognizing that historically these storefronts changed quickly, and it was intended to allow flexibility for a variety of storefronts that sort of reflected the changing commercial nature of Madison Avenue. And the only requirements, if your storefront has modern infill for a new storefront, is that you maintain the plane of the street wall, that you for at least 50% of the infill, that you have transparency, and that's pretty much it. I think other than that, we don't require transoms, staff doesn't review materials or details. It's pretty much an anything goes within the openings. And the reason this is before us today is because this is a building that had consistent storefronts. It has a master plan for consistent storefronts. So because they're introducing variety, we're looking at it. But just to sort of give you that larger context about the Madison Avenue master plan. And so there are many large apartment buildings along Madison Avenue that have storefronts with transoms and without transoms, and a combination as a result of that. Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, just to bring up as a technicality, so the way the permit was issued, it's been described that there's a storefront master plan. The way the permit as a result of that was written does not treat it that way. Treated it as a commission approval that was to be done at once or within the time period of that permit. So I think the intent may have been to be a storefront master plan, and perhaps that was thought to be worked out at staff level later, but again, it's not actually how the permit was written. There is a master plan for the awnings and signage alone, but not for the actual storefront infill.
Okay,
So
so
I'm not
the-
sure that it affects anything in particular. I'm just pointing that out.
Okay, this building actually may not technically have a storefront master plan.
Practically speaking, they have to sign it off. They have to revise and sign off the earlier one or amend it to be this.
So what it means is we approved the installation of new storefronts throughout the building that we expected would be completed within 6 years. A master plan would let you to go on in perpetuity and replace them at different times.
Right, so it was presented as master plan, but maybe permitted as a regular. And is that 6 years old? Almost.
yeah.
Next month, next month.
See you next month.
Every time, so we're making this change, but we're not modifying the master plan.
Again, I'll just point, there is no storefront master
Oh, there is
plan.
not, okay.
So it's just kind of, it's sort of be approving a new proposal that, changes some of what had been previously approved, which was intended to be like a master plan or look like everything was being done at once. So this is a variation.
Yeah, so technically not a master plan. Okay, other questions? Yes, Commissioner Jefferson.
Yes, one detail question, architectural detail. Why are you changing the sill to granite, the color of the sill?
The question is, why are we changing the sill to granite?
Of the sill.
The existing sill is granite. We're changing it to a different granite, and it's just I think it's an aesthetic choice to go to a gray granite from that. Let me go back to the existing granite doesn't match the Deer Isle granite at the corners, which is the original. So the existing granite is not original. So we're just going to a different, it's a gray granite passing around the table. Sorry.
Passes is under the windows.
Right. Right. And it's how high? Well, it varies because of the slope. It goes from maybe 3 or 4 inches up to about 8 inches, I think. That's quite low. It's low, which is,
No.
right, which is pretty consistent in the way it moves across the base of the slope. So this is a photograph just illustrating the existing granite, which is, as I mentioned, different than the granite at the corner pier. This is the original, and this is replacement that was put in with the install. So the building has seen quite a bit of change across the base in all the days.
All right, other questions? All right, I'm not seeing any other questions at this time, so we'll move to public testimony. And I'll note that there is no one in the hearing room to speak on this item, so I will turn it over to Gregory to see if we have remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We have a few hands raised in the attendees list right now. The first we'll be hearing from is Jeremy Woodoff from the VSNY. Jeremy Woodoff, I am promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Jeremy Woodoff for the Victorian Society, New York. This building is a perfect example of the benefits of a master plan, and whether it technically has one or not is not really relevant. It's a building that calls for a consistent storefront treatment, and the master plan, or its building history, has achieved that. This proposal would violate the plan and that consistency and destroy the unity of the building space for no discernible functional reason. It should be denied. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we will be hearing from Nuha Ansari from the Friends of the Upper East Side. Nuha Ansari, I'm promoting you to panelist. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Chair Carroll, Honourable Commissioners, my name is Nuha Ansari and I'm speaking on behalf of Friends of the Upper East Side Historic Districts. There are many aspects of this application that Friends' Preservation Committee appreciates. For instance, some of the proposed materials, the bronze window frames and grey granite sills, albeit in a lighter colour, would conform to the guidelines set out in the storefront master plan for the building. And even though the width of the bronze mullions differs from the master plan and is not uniform across all the storefront frames, we find the frames are restrained and unobtrusive, as is the blackened bronze signage thereon. We also note that the proposal does not include modifications to the granite base and limestone masonry. Our Preservation Committee does, however, object to the elimination of the awnings from the facade. The awnings have been retained across all the other storefronts at the building, as well as along the facade on the second floor. We feel that taking away this unifying repetitive element, in addition to the novel dimensions of the window frames, would be a step too far in deviating from the themes proposed by the master plan. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we'll be hearing from Lucy Levine from the Historic Districts Council. Lucy Levine, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Lucy Levine. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HDC believes that this storefront infill should maintain a horizontal muntin and transom band as per the Madison Avenue storefront master plan or the previous approval. The fact that this proposed intervention makes this set of storefronts inconsistent not only with the rest of Madison Avenue, but also with the rest of the storefronts in this specific building make this proposal inappropriate. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I do not see any further hands raised, so I will note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 8 recommends denial. And I will bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
So I'd like to ask if you'd like to respond to the comments.
I think what's important to remember is the scale of this building, I think, and the fact that, I think it's maybe if I can go back to the rendering here, I think seeing the building, in its entirety as one would experience it on the street and not in straight elevation. I think the lack of awnings on the corner really doesn't detract from the architectural character of the building. And yes, it isn't as consistent as it might be with the awnings, but I do think the building and its legibility and its architectural character is retained. I think also the presence of the marquee on both elevations interrupts that arrangement. So this is sort of one other element that just sort of makes for a difference. And I think that the difference is something that the building can support. I think as both the community board in their resolution, Friends of the Upper East Side, there's an acknowledgement that there's a quality to the design of the infill itself, the quality of materials. And I think that's supported by this visual, which I think shows a really elegant, transparent storefront, which is really big picture, sort of in keeping with what the goals of the master plan for Madison Avenue are, and that this building can take some variety, particularly down at the southern end. And it's the last thing I'll say is that this infill is not interspersed between other sets of infill. This is down at the southern end of the building. Half of the bays, 3 of the bays are on 69th Street, and then 4 are on Madison. All the other bays to the north, it's not interspersed. You don't have this sort of staccato rhythm. It's all happening just in one location adjacent to the bronze infill at the building entry on 69th Street. So I think for all those reasons, while it does not abide by the uniformity that was set forth by the 2018 proposal, the building can support something like this.
Thank you. Commissioners, any final questions? All right, and Mark, just a technical question. We approved awnings for all of the storefronts at this building, but I think we said it was okay to have awnings, but we didn't compel awnings, right? So the lack of an awning is not something we can't compel an awning if someone doesn't want an awning, I guess is my point, right?
Well, if the approval was for, I guess I'd have to, I don't know the approval. I'd have to go check.
All right. Okay. But you did it, you addressed it from an appropriateness point of view. So thank you for doing that. Yes.
My question was, we required an on.
So we approved awnings. So where would the approved awnings be?
They would sit within the infill as the other ones. They would sit in.
But you don't need that big
transom or whatever. That's sort of the panel.
You need the big man?
Well, that's where the signage goes. So that would be obscured if there were awnings. I think the goal is to have sort of clarity to the store.
No, I understand that goal. I'm just wondering if that worked out with awnings were required. How would that change at the time?
I think it would change it significantly.
Yeah, just one other point too. I mean, I think our understanding from the prior approval is that the awnings were requested by the applicant. They weren't any requirement, nor would they be for a Madison Avenue approved storefront. It's something if the applicant wants to do it, they can. I mean, and similarly for, storefronts that have built-in awnings that roll out, no one's going to make them pull those awnings out, so they could have them there technically, but hidden for decades, and that's the way they are. So I think we've generally not required applicants to put them there unless it's a specific purpose as part of the approval findings, like maybe it's hiding louvers or it's restorative in some way, in some particular special way.
But it was not a specific condition.
Not
of
that we're
this
aware.
permit. Okay. All right, thank you. Yes, Commissioner Jefferson.
Am I missing something? The corner windows do not have awnings.
They're not proposing awnings.
And the other smaller windows on the second floor have awnings. Will be able to have one?
Those are awnings for the hotel rooms, I guess, right?
It's apartments.
Apartments.
Hotel space, but it's not.
Okay, okay.
Okay.
So just
Yes.
to understand again, the 2023 approved, which is not approved as a master plan, correct?
Correct.
The proposal was to bring consistency to the
was-
storefronts.
Well, it was
A consistent proposal.
So, yes, so it only covered the northern 2/3 of the building. It did not, that 2023 approval is for there are two tenants on the ground floor now, hopefully.
Okay.
Well, our tenant Kate is moving in, and there's another tenant that's taking 2/3 of the other base. So the approval from 2023 and what's represented in the presentation are the sheets from that approval, which only,
Okay, so our approval was not for the entire building, just for 2/3 of the building.
So it's basically from the lease area this is the dividing point. So our client is taking this space and around the corner, and the other tenant is taking the space.
It's
Currently.
two separate permits.
Currently.
Yes.
No, I'm just asking when this proposal, I'm looking at that elevation, was that proposal?
I understand now,
Yeah.
they were two separate permits.
So the earlier one that had the intent of being a master plan
Yes.
was comprehensive, but after that happened more recently, it just, handled these storefronts that Cass just pointed out, the 2/3 of them, left alone the ones that are being addressed now.
All right, so we already approved something at 2/3 of the building that varied from the comprehensive approval.
I get it.
It varied. It was another certificate of appropriateness.
Okay.
Change of tenant, change.
Yeah.
Well, the second permit also included the second floor where there were modifications to openings and some unifying factors that weren't contemplated, I think, in the original.
On the north end of the building. All right. Does that help? Are there other questions about the prior approvals? Okay, so let's move to our discussion. Commissioner Master, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. And Commissioner Chu, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so the hearing's closed and we're going to begin our discussion. So this is a building that prior or at the time of designation had consistent storefronts. The commission has issued 2 certificates of appropriateness in the past, one for a comprehensive set of storefronts for the whole building, and the other, a more recent certificate of appropriateness for the northern 2/3 of the building, which varied slightly from the original approval, but also included changes at the second floor. And so this is a third permit for the southern end of the building. And the elements within this storefront would otherwise meet the staff, the Madison Avenue Master Plan, which authorizes the staff to issue permits for modern storefronts, but for the fact that it's in a building and we have to consider in a building where we have to consider consistency. So it's really sort of a question about, does this variation detract from the building, and less so about the particular details of the storefront, except to the extent that they relate to the others. And so we'll begin our discussion. Commissioner Ginsburg, would you like to start this one?
Okay, I find this fairly easy. I think that the infill, that because there is a strong masonry opening, the variation in infill doesn't bother me, and I find it appropriate, and having the more glass within the storefront, I think is fine. So I find this approvable.
All right, thank you. Vice Chair Bland?
Couldn't agree more. Foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds. And I think in this case, that was Ralph Waldo Emerson, if you need to know. I had to check it. I think the master plan, or whatever it was back in 2018, which made everything the same, no matter who proposed it, was unnecessary here because of just what Mark Ginsburg has said. This building is nothing if not relentless in its consistency. So why not allow occasional inconsistencies at the lower level? And, you know, we all walk this strip a lot, probably not buying a lot of stuff, but we're there looking in, and I wonder how many people would ever be able to tell how the storefronts change. We're always looking at what's inside for sale and so forth. I think the fact for me is that this is a very elegant, beautiful solution appropriate for this store, and I think it's gorgeous, frankly.
And contained within very strong architecture that is the primary reading, and I think that they all still have a level of transparency that sort of unifies them.
Take the words right out of my mouth.
Commissioner Lutfi?
Just to add, you know, the faux master plan, it was actually a good idea initially, because what it basically said was, we're not going to let you do everything. The base of this building is beautiful, and you have to respect the architectural elements of it. So, you know, just to say to staff and everybody and whoever was the commissioner at the moment, you know, so that made a lot of sense. But tenancies change, and tenants have different, you know, products that they're marketing, and they require a little bit of differentiation. And it's clear that in our, you know, the new certificates of appropriateness that we have all approved, that what has been approved is very respectful of the architecture, and the architectural at the base is so strong that if the applicants are, you know, thinking about it and they want to honor it, and, you know, the kinds of things that are marketed in these tenant spaces are so high end, that's the way they're going anyway. It all works out. So I'm just going to echo the fact that this is very appropriate. The solution is very, very elegant and understated. One of the most understated signage applications, and the materiality is terrific.
Okay. Commissioner Chu?
Yeah, I agree completely with what Mark said earlier. My only comment is, I noticed that there's removable sconces, and I didn't know if there was any historic value to those sconces.
No, they were part of the fire improvement, similar to the awnings not required.
Okay.
All right. Does anyone have other thoughts or different opinions? Commissioner Goldblum?
I think that where every single source document that is available in an environment where that is a rarity, that it deserves the space.
Other thoughts?
Foolish.
Other thoughts or opinions? Okay.
No, I was just going to say that, you have a strong retail tenant coming in, and it sounds like it's a 20-year lease, and they have 7 bays. They should have the right to brand it and have a little bit of individuality. And I think that what's being proposed here is minimal. And from that corner, you're really not going to be able to see that it's much different from other infills.
Mhm. Great. Commissioner Jefferson?
I'm surprised at how opening up the second floor makes such a big difference in this facade. It's lovely.
Yeah, okay. All right, so I think, understanding Commissioner Goldblum's comments, I do think we have enough to support this. So Commissioner Ginsburg, would you make the motion?
Right. Yes. With regards to LPC 24-06416, 828-850 Madison Avenue, Upper East Side Historic District, a neo-Renaissance style hotel building designed by George F. Pelham and built in 1925-1926. Application is to install storefront infill and signage. I note that the building style, scale, material details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Upper East Side Historic District. I also note that one of the buildings which the district master plan for storefronts in the Upper East Side Historic District identifies as having a level of storefront uniformity that relates well to the design of the upper stories and reinforces the character of the streetscape in the district master plan, requires that for staff level review, proposals for storefront replacement and alteration at the building occur on all storefronts on the same floor in order to maintain a level of uniformity. I recommend approval, finding that the replacement of the existing modern infill at the southern ground floor storefront bays will not eliminate or damage any significant architectural features, that the proposed large display windows and simply detailed metal perimeter framing will be consistent with aspects of the other storefront infills at the ground and second floor, thereby supporting the unity of the building base, that the low height and simple design of the proposed bulkheads will help them to be neutral presence when seen with the infill at the northern storefront, that the placement of sign panels within the storefront assembly and the recessing of infill at 3 entrance bays will be secondary aspects of the design which will not disrupt the overall unity of the base, that the signage at the piers and set into the paving will be compatible with the approved master plan signage, that the cumulative amount of signage will not overwhelm the storefront or the building, and that the work will not detract from the special architectural historic character of the Upper East Side Historic District.
Your Vice Chair Bland, would you second that motion?
Second.
Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll.
Aye.
Commissioner Bland. Commissioner Chapin.
Nay.
Commissioner Chu.
Aye.
Pardon?
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg.
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum.
No.
Commissioner Jefferson.
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi.
Aye.
Commissioner Master.
Aye.
With 7 in favor and 2 opposed, the motion passes.
All right, that's approved. Thank you. And we'll move to the next item.
The next item is public hearing item number 14, LPC 24-06148. An application for certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 1504, Lot 7501, 1295 Madison Avenue in the expanded Carnegie Hill Historic District. This is a neo-Renaissance style hotel building designed by Louis Korn and built in 1899 to 1900. The application is to legalize the installation of signage without LPC permits.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Michelle Craren, Preservation Staff. This application is to legalize work completed without Landmarks Preservation Commission permits at 1295 Madison Avenue. The building is located on the east side of Madison Avenue between East 92nd and East 93rd Streets in the expanded Carnegie Hill Historic District. At the time of construction in 1900, the neo-Renaissance style hotel building did not have any storefronts at the ground floor. And by the 1940s, the southern portion of the Madison Avenue facade had been modified to accommodate multiple storefronts seen on the upper left. And the entrance porticos were removed while punched openings at the East 92nd Street facade were maintained. This is more or less the condition that remained until the time of designation of the Parkway district, which is seen in the center photo. Subsequently, a cornice approved by the commission was installed above the storefronts. Again, that's also in the center photo. And more recently, there was also a commission approval for the replacement of storefront infill and windows at the south facade at the staff level. Subsequently, 2 sign panels with lettering and logos were installed without permits over the new storefront infill, one at Madison Avenue and one at East 96th Street, seen on the right. Here are some additional photos of the signs. The one on Madison Avenue covers and extends beyond the transom window at the storefront bay, and at East 92nd Street, the sign covers 2 transom windows and spans the space between 2 masonry openings. The signs are non-illuminated aluminum letters and lettering and logo pin mounted to an aluminum sign panel. Here are just some additional close-up photos of the installation. And a floor plan showing the Chase Bank space. On this image, note that the menu boxes were in place prior to the designation of the historic district, and that the commission does not regulate the content of such installations. Here are some details showing the dimensions of both signs. And a streetscape of both sides of Madison Avenue at this block. Our building is on the right in the upper photo. And then here's an example of similar Chase signage in another historic district. In this case, the obscured transoms were a condition that predate this installation, which is also the case here at 120 Broadway and individual. I'll just go back to this and hand it over to the applicant who's here to discuss this proposed legalization in more detail and answer any questions.
All right. Would you like to come up and just state your name for the record? And we'll see if we have any questions.
How you guys doing? Eric Metzger.
Okay. So I guess we can sort of maybe start, as we start to think about questions, this is, these signs are close to what might have met our rules and unfortunately just a bit off because it was done without the benefit of our guidance. Do you want to maybe talk a little bit about how that happened and then?
Yes,
Okay.
We had a couple, I've done a lot of these jobs previously and, so used to everything under 18 inches, no more than 4-inch back panel, not illuminated. I thought this was going to get questions. A lot of times you have to get our signs in production ahead of, well, not a lot of times, not every time, in order to make our dates and schedules and stuff. 120 Broadway, turns out that one did get approved. We haven't installed that yet. That's where a little bit of the confusion came in with my contractor who does the installations. Similar signs, they got installed. So that's why I'm here to try to see if, keep what's installed. But there was one condition that the community board, they recommended. If you look at the middle photo there, how the sign on Madison, we have it all the way to the top of the cornice, top to the bottom of the cornice. We did, and the board wanted that sign to get lower, about 8 inches, which would put it right towards, it would line up with the top of the window mullions. Just like if you look at the bottom sign on 92nd Street, that sign is at the top of the sign goes to the bottom of the cornice, but the windows all up or the bottom of the cornice, so everything lines up. That was one of the main topics of discussion that CMA board wanted to change. So it was really adjusting my application.
Are you proposing to lower it then?
Yes, I am proposing that, with all, I feel that makes a whole lot of sense. Again, we wanted the ladders to be at the same height, so I can see our point too, but, I'm pretty firm that, hey, they approved it, it's down like that, so I adjusted my elevations and we have no problems making that change.
Okay. Commissioners, any other questions? All right. And the height of those signs is 36 inches, the sign panel? So, which is unfortunately
38.
38, okay. So taller than your transom area. Okay. And I'll note that there's no one in the room to speak on this item, so I will turn it over to Gregory to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We have a few hands raised in the attendees list. The first person we'll be hearing from is Jeremy Woodoff from the Victorian Society of New York. Jeremy Woodoff, I am promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
My name is Jeremy Woodoff, and I'm speaking for the Victorian Society, New York. These signs have two problems. First, the two large signs extend beyond the masonry openings, interrupting the rhythm of stone piers. The sign on 92nd Street is especially egregious. Second, the sign boxes are applied over glazed transoms, never an appropriate approach. Less damaging would be to place the sign behind the transom glass or to backpaint the glass directly. The proposed legalization should be denied. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we will be hearing from Nuha Ansari from the Friends of the Upper East Side. Nuha Ansari, I've promoted you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and say your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Chair Carroll, Honourable Commissioners, my name is Nuha Ansari and I'm speaking on behalf of Friends of the Upper East Side. Friends' Preservation Committee is very concerned that the signage on the facades was installed without LPC permits, and we object to the legalization of the installed signage, which we do not feel is appropriate in the context of this prominent hotel building. We note in particular that the sign installed on the Madison Avenue facade is not in line with the top of the window frame, and we urge the applicants to lower the sign to align with the window openings. Our Preservation Committee also objects to the sign on the East 92nd Street facade, which spans the width of 2 windows, and we would ask that the applicants install more discrete signage that does not detract from the architecture of the building. We have no objections to the logo signage that's set within the former menu boards. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we'll be hearing from Lucy Levine from the Historic Districts Council. Lucy Levine, I've promoted you to panelist. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hi, Commissioners. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HDC finds the signage on the 92nd Street facade to be inappropriate because the sign does not fit within the existing opening and does not hold the transom line. Instead, it crosses the masonry pier, which we object to.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I do not see any further hands raised, so I will note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 8 recommends denial. And I will bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
Okay, all right. Would you like to respond to the comments we've heard?
And I do honestly appreciate everyone's comments, and I understand everyone has their own opinion on the way things look. The sign on East 92nd Street, I just want to, I feel that sign is really important. Unfortunately, you know, I know it's the way the building is. There's no storefront, it's the way the windows are laid out. But when you're driving down north on Madison Avenue, that's the only sign that you're going to see that tells you there is banking. Those little signs on the poster menu boxes, that's made for if you're walking and you're standing pretty much in front. You're not going to see that sign whatsoever. I just think it's really important that Chase can have that set of letters. And again, it's only a 12-inch set of letters. I know the back panel is made so we can have, you know, have the spot install the sign. And I'm just so limited with what we can do with it, I think. Again, when I was driving down that street, that was the first thing that caught my eye is that sign. If that goes away, I just don't see, by the time you see what's there, you can drive past it.
Okay. Commissioners, any final questions? All right, let's move to our discussion. Commissioner Chu, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. Commissioner Ginsburg, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, the hearing is closed. So this is a legalization for two signs that were installed without the benefit of our guidance and therefore don't meet our rules for a staff level approval and are before us. And sort of the main issues are the size of them and the placement of them, that sort of wider than the opening and spanning two window openings. So we'll have a discussion about the appropriateness on this building. Commissioner Master, would you like to start this one?
Sure. I have to agree with the folks who testified, but it sounds like the applicant is also in agreement of lowering the sign on Madison Avenue, which is good. And then, so the question that remains is really the one on 92nd Street. And I think there is opposition to having it span the two windows. I don't know. I do agree that it's very distracting that it does span the two window openings. I understand the applicant's predicament, but I'm not sure that we can approve that.
Okay. Commissioner Chu?
Yeah, I think that the way that the signage has been deployed feels a little too additive and tacked on this historic building. The one that spans, it's like a 92nd Street. I cannot accept that where it crosses over the masonry. And I would ask maybe the applicant, I looked it up and Chase does sometimes advertise their name vertically. Would you ever consider that? I think try to keep in keeping with the fenestration openings of the facade. That's really what we're talking about. Yeah. So I would say as a rule that the signage should never go beyond the mullion. And you said you could lower the signage so that it aligns with the top mullion on Madison. I think I personally feel it needs to go with the bottom mullion also in that condition and on the sides, because I noticed the pictures, they extend beyond the sides as well. It all just adds to a feeling that it's just stuck right on the facade. I looked at some of the other Chase signage in historic buildings and they're much more carefully crafted. They even had integral lighting that uplighted, but they set into the storefront as a part of the system and not an additive element. Yes, I cannot approve this as it is.
Okay. Commissioner Lutfi?
Agree with my fellow commissioners. The signage should be set within the window frame in both instances. And, maybe there's an opportunity here for a banner or something, but it can't really be applied over the facade like a piece of poster board.
Okay. Vice Chair Bland?
I'm in agreement, and I just point out that the Chase logo, quite famous, would fit nicely in that skinny window.
Yep. Commissioner Goldblum? Commissioner Chapin?
Yeah, I also agree, Chase customer and the logo is very recognizable, so I think you could use the logo in the smaller windows and the other sign should be fit within the
Transom area. Okay.
And they could
Commissioner
have more than
Jefferson? All right, and Commissioner Ginsburg?
I agree. I also want to add to the comment about not seeing it from a car. Very few New Yorkers are in cars. Most of them are walking or sometimes in buses or cabs. But 85% of us take mass transit. And so the fact that you might not see it from a car doesn't seem to me to be the end of the world.
Okay. All right, so
they could have more than one, yeah.
In the matter of LPC 24-06148, 1295 Madison Avenue, expanded Carnegie Hill Historic District, a neo-Renaissance style hotel building designed by Louis Korn and built in 1900. Application is to legalize the installation of signage without Landmarks Preservation Commission permits. I note that the building style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the expanded Carnegie Hill Historic District. I recommend approval with modifications, finding that the work did not damage or eliminate any significant architectural features, that the building lacks a sign band, thereby necessitating the installation of signage within storefront windows, and that the signage, lettering, and logo are simple in design, typical in terms of material and finish, and modest in size relative to the storefront glazing. However, I recommend reduced signage on Madison Avenue within the window opening, and on 92nd Street, reduced signage within the openings and aligning with the transom.
Mark, will you call the vote?
Yeah, Chair Carroll.
Aye.
Commissioner Bland. Aye. Commissioner Chapin.
Aye.
Commissioner Chu.
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg.
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum. Aye. Commissioner Jefferson.
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi.
Aye.
Commissioner Master.
Aye.
With 9 in favor, none opposed, the motion passes.
Right, so please continue to work with the staff. Thank you. And we'll move to the next and final item.
Last item of the day is public hearing item number 15, LPC 23-11199. An application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Queens, block 8093, lot 14, 3847 Douglaston Parkway in the Douglaston Historic District. This is a ranch-style freestanding house built in 1956. And the application is to legalize work installed in non-compliance with permit for minor work 12-2361 and certificate of no effect 13-6498, as well as work completed without LPC permits.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thanks for sticking around. Got a great show for you tonight. Okay. Anyway, here we are coming to Douglaston, and we're here today to address a few 8 items that over some time have been done without a permit or didn't follow the original permit and perhaps didn't follow the master plan at the time. This is a 1956 ranch, one of a group of ranches along Douglaston Parkway, which is the entrance point to the Douglaston Historic District. And the items right off the bat are, we had an approval for an 11-foot wide driveway, and the driveway came in at 13. We had material approved for brick pavers, and the driveway was changed to a gray concrete. There was at the front apron, at the curb, the Belgian block was in place and widened quite substantially, and I'll get into the reasons for all of these items further down the road. And then we have created a terrace up here. There was a stair landing to get to the front entrance, and the terrace was expanded and a wrought iron railing was placed in. There's a fence on this side of the driveway that was parallel to the front of the building and then rotated 90 degrees to come into the front yard. And then there was replacing some sidewalk as well on either side of the front of the front of the house without proper winter beige pigment. And then along Hillside Avenue, which this is a corner property, so up the hill on Hillside Avenue, you'll see there was some site work modified and some Belgian block pavers put in, and then in the rear yard, a wood shed in excess of the master plan 80 square foot was also installed without a permit. So as I mentioned, this is an unusual site because it has many boundaries. It's on the boundary of the historic district. It's also on the boundary of the Douglas Manor Association. It is not in the Douglas Manor Association. Here we have the 1980 tax photo on the bottom left. This was the designation photo in the bottom center, and then of course as-built at the top. Moving along, The property is unusual, besides having all these boundaries, it also is at the bottom of the hill. And I've illustrated some of these conditions to show that when it rains heavy in Douglaston, and all of the water comes down Hillside Avenue. And there are catch basins, but the catch basins get overrun, and the water has a tendency to pond along this area here. And what subsequently happens, as this is the entrance into Douglaston, it is the most trafficked intersection. It's a three-way intersection. It's the most trafficked intersection here in Douglaston, both vehicular and people walking. So constant when we have the standing water and rain and cars run by, the parking strip is just saturated, turns into mud. So again, it has many site concerns as well. This is that retaining wall with a fence on top of it that was widened, that was relocated. It's one of the items that was done. Moving along. Okay, this is just a site plan survey. Shows the shed in the back, shows the Belgian block curb cut that was not curb cut, pardon me, Belgian block paving that was added there. Fence was relocated here, and then all the other sidewalk occurred at the front of the street, facing Douglaston Parkway. And then a couple of the fences, you'll see the inside of the fence of these wood fences, some chain chicken wire fence. This is the stone terrace that was erected as part of expanding the entrance stairs that comes up into the house. When the homeowner did a lot of the work, yes, perhaps he didn't follow the exact approval. He did hire an architect to do the approval, which was not me, and he did hire a local landscape architect, a landscape contractor who helped him do a lot of the landscape work, but he used materials that were all appropriate to the district. The bluestone paving, the black painted wrought iron railings, the bluestone dry stack walls, and so on and so forth. Many of the items were all items that were approvable by the master plan, but done without permit or amendments. Here's the three adjoining houses. This particular corner was owned by one adjacent house at one point in the early 50s, according to my 1934 Sanborn map. And then in the 51, it was subdivided into four building lots, and we have the adjacent lots, one of which was modified by landmarking through an approval process. And the other two remained pretty much original as to what they look. Again, where the sidewalk have been replaced, sidewalk replaces occurs when Con Ed or utility companies come in, they do a repair and they don't use winter drainage, or they don't even follow the same pattern when they do the patches. And you can see there's a hodgepodge of conditions. In the streetscape, you might, note here at the top is a composite image of the other adjacent properties and how they managed the curb and water by putting in raised plant beds, some with a lot of planting, but definitely all with additional curb in addition to the street curb. And again, here's some plantings. And all of these properties all have these low retaining walls. As corner properties, the lowest point, the walls go up in height as the grade comes up as well. And then directly across, the most unusual thing about this particular site is the only multiple dwelling in the Douglaston Peninsula happens to be directly across the street from this particular property across Douglaston Parkway. And then this is the property directly across Hillside Avenue. So the streetscape, you can see it's a busy intersection, if you can call a Queens suburban corner busy. It is for us. Up Hillside, these the photos on the right illustrate the summertime view of this Belgian block that was the stone wall was interrupted and a Belgian block was installed with a pair of gates, and that's to provide access into the rear yard. Because this corner also happens to be a very heavily trafficked personal traffic, adults and children all coming down the hill to go to the train station and to go to school or to be picked up by the school bus. They all travel around this area. So in order for the homeowner to be able to get his snow blowing equipment or maintenance equipment in and out of the rear yard, this gate and this cut in stone wall was established, because at the driveway there is a retaining wall that prohibits equipment to get in and out of the yard. I'm trying to move pretty quickly because I know you're anxious to get home. Here's the pictures of the fence that was put in. Again, master plan approves an 80 square foot fence, shed. This shed happens to be 97 square feet. And it's access to this pair of gates off hillside. There are other examples within the district of landings, terraces, and raised terraces where, as part of the entrance, because we are a hilly neighborhood, so there are some properties that took advantage of the hills in various spots. Again, in the peninsula, this end, the south end of the peninsula is much more hilly than obviously the tip and north end. So these all occur at the top of the hill.
When I look at this.
This one specifically is an older one. The other two were were approved renovations by Landmark. This is an unusual one where it's an extra new lot.
That's what, okay.
And I think that's it. Oh, yeah, I think that's what I had agreed with them, so. The homeowner is here, you know, if I may just give a really brief.
Absolutely.
He was a young couple who came in, they bought this sort of house, they had family in the neighborhood. They hired an architect, they started the renovation, and then they had triplets. And so this is a 1,000 square foot house that they stayed in for almost 5 years with their triplets. And you know, the house, and so what happened, of course, when you bring kids into any kind of house that's living on a septic system, the septic system failed. So part of the work that happened didn't exactly happen when the approval was in place. After they were in the house, kids were around, septic system failed, ground floor floods with water, emergency repair on the septic system. And at that time, money was a little tighter. Driveway comes out, new septic system is placed under the driveway. Concrete is installed instead of the paving. It was an emergency situation. They didn't go back to the commission. They did not use the white concrete. They used the gray concrete. And over time, it's blended so much. So conditions have arisen, and that's how we go.
Okay, thank you very much. That's helpful. Any other questions, commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Ginsburg.
Yeah, I just have a question. They knew this building was Landmarks. They got approval and then they didn't follow the drawings. Is there any explanation why, besides the fact they changed their mind?
Well, I'll address a couple of those things. In Douglaston, when I'm a native of Douglaston. I live in the district. I was involved with the historic organization when they were still applying for it. And everybody was really, yes, we're a garden community, but everyone was told that the houses are really are the goal to protect the house. And when you move somebody into a neighborhood, their yard is their domain. So people did things to their yards, perhaps not knowing exactly that they were in violation of these regulations. We didn't have a lot of examples where people were really penalized for not following yard regulations. But now we've got a great number of people who've gotten in trouble for doing things in their yards and have had to come and legalize it, or have had to have taken extra measures along the way to maintain a current application as the work is progressing. So, yes, it's oversight. Yes, it's a mistake. Again, it's potentially temporary because it's this man's opinion of how he'd like his yard to be, and it might be different for the next homeowner of this particular property. This property was owned by one family since 1956. He bought it from the original owner. So the yard hadn't changed really too much. So he did the work, but beyond that, I'd have to ask him if he'd like to address that.
Is there anything you would like to add? Just come up and just speak into the mic so the participants on Zoom can hear you and state your name before.
Absolutely. Hi, Dimitri Mouskouras. I'm the owner of the house. When I bought the house, I applied for every permit. I did everything by the book. That was later on. The driveway and the curb was done in absolutely no malice. My wife called me up one night. The basement was flooded. I didn't realize, I didn't even know where the cesspool was. I knew nothing of cesspools. Now I'm a professional. But I called up someone. He did the work right away. He put in a cesspool for me. I was approved for brick in the driveway, years earlier, but I couldn't afford to put brick down after, putting in that cesspool, so we did concrete. I had no idea anything about color or anything like that. I assumed he would know, he was, professional, he did that. And then, in the cobblestone, that road in front of my house is constantly being driven on by trucks. They film a lot of TV shows in that neighborhood, so those giant 18-wheelers always come in, and they cut up my block up the hill, so they make a right on it. But in order to do that, they ride up on the sidewalk and they destroy it. They destroyed it for years. So it's always where that grass should be, where it should be nice grass, it's just run over dirt and mud, and it's just looks horrible. So when he did the driveway, I asked him, just maybe we put in cobblestone. It looks pretty. There's cobblestone all over the neighborhood. I had no idea I needed to apply for that. And he hasn't done it now. So anything like that.
Same
It
thing.
was really nice. And then, so.
And I just add, the other problem with this particular site is there is absolutely no parking anywhere nearby this particular property, no street parking. So to be able to get his kids in and out of his car, he created an apron where people off the road safely.
Right. Any other questions? All right, let's see if we have public testimony, and I'll note that there is no one in the hearing room, so I will turn it to Gregory to see if we have remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We have a couple of hands raised on the attendees list. The first we'll be hearing from is Jeremy Woodoff from the Victorian Society of New York. Jeremy Woodoff, I've promoted you to panelist. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hello, Commissioners. I'm Jeremy Woodoff, speaking for the Victorian Society, New York. We are limiting our testimony on this application to the failure of the owner to properly tint the concrete sidewalk to the Douglaston standard winter beige. One of our committee members worked extensively in the past with the Department of Transportation on standards for appropriate materials and designs for public rights-of-way in historic districts. The resulting standards often apply to all or most districts, but in some cases, like Douglaston, they are specific to one district. Cobblestone curbs and gutters are other unique features of the Douglaston streetscape that are a standard for the district. The commissioners should be aware of the significant effort that was required to reach agreement on these historic district standards. The effort involved the commission itself, the Public Design Commission, the Department of Transportation, Department of Design and Construction, Office of Management and Budget, individual community associations, and others. Many, if not most of the standards are not codified in rules. It's critical that the Landmarks Commission uphold the standards. Otherwise, there will be a tendency to return to the one-size-fits-all treatment of the past. Over time, the protection and restoration of designs and materials special to the public realm in historic districts will enhance the character of these districts. The reverse will degrade it. We urge the Commission to deny legalization of the sidewalks as proposed in this application and require that they be replaced with correctly tinted sidewalks. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we will be hearing from Lucy Levine from the Historic Districts Council. Lucy Levine, I've promoted you to panelist. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Lucy Levine. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HDC asks LPC to please deny this legalization. It is unclear to us why the applicant proceeded without permits and why they did not follow the neighborhood's existing master plan regarding concrete tint. We believe the applicant should follow the existing master plan. Further, we find the shed that was constructed without permits to be inappropriate. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I do not see any further hands raised, so I will note for the record that Queens Community Board 11 recommends mixed approval with their suggested solution is to remove the Belgian block asphalt and concrete paving at the median And they also do not approve of the cobblestone apron and gate on the Hillside Avenue side. And with that, I'll bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
Thank you. So would you like to respond to either of you to the testimony we've heard?
Thank you. Yeah, so regarding, like you said, the winter beige, this was not done in a white concrete, it was done in a gray concrete. And there is such a variety of concretes in the historic district currently. And even now as we speak, I see more than my share of concrete, of sidewalks being replaced without any tint and even in white. But that being said, the only small portions of the sidewalk here were done, and the driveway. And as you mentioned, the driveway was done because of, unfortunately, financial reasons. As far as the access to the gates on Hillside Avenue, it's critically important for this particular corner lot, which is only a 50 by 110 lot with 160 linear feet of street frontage to access his property into it really well for me.
And can you just again show how visible the shed is in the back?
Sure. Well, sorry. There it is. Okay. So on the upper left is the winter view. So that's everything down. That's current. Maybe that's a week ago or so. On the upper left, and how you can see it. Whereas the two on the right is the summertime view, where it is really practically completely obscured.
Okay. All right. Other final questions, commissioners? No. Yes. Yes.
And this is the access to the shed here is with the gate. Is there a curb cut there? Is that a driveway parking spot inside?
No, that's all existing curb and existing sidewalk, and no, it's not a curb cut. It's not a legal curb cut.
Okay, but the gate looks like it's accommodating a car to pull in.
I suppose it is an 8-foot wide gate.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. All right. So if there are no other questions, we will move to our discussion. Commissioner Lutfi, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
And Vice Chair Bland, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we will now begin our discussion on the changes to the fencing, sidewalk, curb, and shed in the backyard, and all these 8 elements that are sort of landscape and site changes that occurred without permits. And we've had a lot of presentation on why and what the resulting conditions are. So Commissioner Goldblum, would you like to start it?
Sure. I think Philip's going to get a reputation around here. I think this is application 2 or 3 that was cleaning up someone else's mess, but so be it. I make a living. I think that the widened driveway is slightly problematic, but okay, as long as it meets zoning code. I think that the problem with the widened driveway and apron has to do with the kind of quantity of overall pavement viewed from the street. Usually, I would, in this district, recommend that the applicants try to maximize green, but here it's fairly straightforward. There's plenty of green around it, so I think it's okay. Surface of the driveway, I think it's okay. It's on a private parcel. I don't think it's I think the Belgian block, it was already approved and it's just a different color. I think it's fine. The terrace landing, fine. Goes with the neighborhood and landscaping well. Wood fence seems like it's relatively secondary. Sidewalk. I mean, if there were an issue with the neighborhood at the community board, I I would have taken a little more seriously, but I don't think it was. Storage shed is horrendous, but I don't think it's, I think that the fact that we're seeing it has nothing to do with its horrendousness. So I think that
That's slightly larger than the staff could approve. All right, Commissioner Chapin?
Well, this is a lot, a lot of stuff that is become an issue. And it's, as usual, unfortunate just because, you know, you can possibly work with their staff, you can deal with these issues and not have them become issues after the fact. At the same time, we try to look at these things, you know, could we approve them? You know, are they so far out of line from what we would have approved that we cannot retrospectively approve them? And as Michael has said, you know, the driveway, though it's somewhat larger, it's well screened. The concrete color is not really calling attention to itself. The Belgian block apparent is, as I think was, as Michael suggested, we were okay with having some Belgian block, and it's just more of it than should have been anticipated. And the owner was saying that he's got problems with, you know, trucks, which I'm sure he does, you know, parking on the sidewalk and causing other problems, which they've tried to deter with various things. I think one of the principal things I'm thinking here is this is not one of the properties for which the district is designated. So we can, you know, if it were, we'd have to be much stricter about our reaction to all of this. And the shed, I'm not sure what could be done with that. I'm just wondering if, you know, painting it a different color might be a.
plastic. I never can.
Oh, it's plastic. Geez.
And again, it would otherwise meet the rules except for its size.
Yeah, so it's well, you could still paint it. Maybe it was a green or something, you know, like the door, maybe it would recede more, you know. I was thinking if there's something that could make it recede somewhat more. You can't really plant anything by it, I don't think there.
No, but I do think they were showing that during the season when there's foliage, that it is pretty obscured.
It may be better, yes, because there are trees around there and stuff. I think, again, the more you could conceal it, the better. So, you know, I just really, really urge the applicant and others to come to us when they have an emergency. We will respond, and, you know, come to us as soon as possible. Don't assume that your contractor knows what he's doing, because he knows what he's doing, but not what he should be doing with regard to a district. So anyway, you know, I guess, go along with most of this.
Okay, and you know, I'm thinking about the recent applications for legalizations, particularly at site work, where we've seen recently. I think this may be a place that we want to focus some targeted outreach and education, so we can work on
I
that.
think that's a great idea. We've seen too many legalizations from this neighborhood.
Yeah, we'll put it into our outreach plan.
It's a disconnect.
Commissioner Jeff.
Look, and they get a violation, and then they come to here, you know,
Yeah.
tail between legs.
Yeah, so we'll put that into our outreach plan. Yeah. Yep. Okay, Commissioner Jefferson?
I can overlook the hardscape stuff, that concrete floor. And I think that's very difficult and expensive to do. There's only two items that I would recommend them doing, would be the shed. If there was some way of clearly defining what the shed should be, proportion, height, size, and that happen. And it's not, will not be that expensive. And the Belgian block portion of the sidewalk, I think that possible because that's in soft soil. That's not in concrete. So that's a possibility to do that. But hardscape stuff, I'll pass.
Okay. Commissioner Master?
I agree with Commissioner Goldblum. And I don't really have anything else to add.
Okay, so supporting it all. Commissioner Chu?
Yeah, I have nothing else to add to this. Because it's not a significant contributing property, being more lenient, but I want to echo previous comments about doing this properly as a process, and respecting the different conditions that were initially outlined.
Thank you. Commissioner Lutfi?
Yeah, I concur with Commissioner Goldblum and Chapin.
Okay. Commissioner Bland? Vice Chair
I
Bland?
think all of these 8 issues are semi-problematic, but not overly problematic, and so I can go along as it's been said already. I just want to say one thing about the concrete. I think it's not so bad here, but the tinted concrete, a lot of neighborhoods, including Brooklyn Heights, the first historic district, my neighborhood, fought long and hard long ago to do this, and to this day, every year, there are 2 or 3 properties that put in white concrete. It drives me nuts, and I'm sure they never get a violation. And it's expensive to rip it all out, of course.
Yeah, we actually, in
Yeah,
districts where there's bluestone, we do require, and there's bluestone on the
Well, I mean,
street.
like post facto.
Yeah, we have an actual
Good
color
paint
that we
on it.
give you. Oh, a stain. We have done that, yeah.
Well, anyway, I don't think it's so bad here. It's not so egregious enough.
Yeah, it's not next to bluestone.
But it's a big issue in some.
Yeah. All right. Commissioner Ginsburg?
Yeah, I want to flag what the community board said, because they talked about flooding here and then put in hard surfaces. And if they really cared about flooding, they'd take up the pavers and the excess concrete and dig it up and put some sand and plantings and create bioswales to soak up the water. So I really think that they should do that, or at least put back in the planting strips. And then the other thing, which isn't directly us, is that I think the driveway to the back is against zoning. And so even if we approve that, I would expect the building department to disapprove it. But I
We'll
can
have to watch that.
support everything else, but I think they should remove the Belgian blocks and put in planting, and ideally make them bioswales.
Okay. All right. Understood. So I think where we are is we have more than 6 who would support everything as is. It's encourage you to think about removing the Belgian block and doing planted areas to deal with that water runoff. But I think we'll go ahead and approve it today. Commissioner Goldblum, make the motion.
Regard 3847 Parkway in the Douglaston Historic District. The application is to legalize work completed in noncompliance with PMW 12-2361 and CNE 13-6498, as well as work completed without LPC permits. I note that the building is not one for which the Douglaston Historic District was designated. I recommend approval, finding that the raised terrace, stair, and fencing are in keeping with similar features of the entrance of neighboring houses, regarding their placement, size, and materials, and are compatible with the house in terms of their materials and finishes, and partially screened by plantings, helping them be harmonious secondary features within streetscape views. That the widened driveway is well scaled to the site and situated between wide, densely planted yards, and is deferential to the primacy of the landscaping. That lightly tinted concrete sidewalk and driveway paving blends with the adjoining concrete sidewalk paving in color and does not call undue attention to itself. that the paving at the rear of the property is consistent with the driveways and other pathways sometimes found at properties within the historic district in terms of placement and size, that the Belgian block paving matches historic paving at driveways, curbs, gutters found in various locations throughout the historic district in terms of material and pattern, and that the shed is typical in terms of placement material, simply designed, well scaled to the house inside, and only visible from public thoroughfares over a fence at the rear of the property.
Okay. All right, and Commissioner Chapin, would you second that motion?
Second.
All right, Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll.
Aye.
Commissioner Bland. Commissioner Chapin.
Aye.
Commissioner Chu.
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg.
Nay.
Commissioner Goldblum.
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson. Commissioner Lutfi.
Aye.
Commissioner Master.
Aye.
With 8 in favor and 1 opposed, the motion passes.
All right, so that's approved. So that concludes our public hearing and public meeting day today, February 27th, 2024. We got through all of our items, so I want to thank you all, commissioners, for sticking it out, your hard work, commitment, and careful review of all of our applications as always. Thank you. And we'll see